Take the mansion, Nora said. Claire's hand stopped halfway to the silver coffee pot. Graham looked up from the yellow legal pad where he had divided their father's life into 3 neat columns. What does that mean? Claire asked. It means you two can have Wrenwood. Nora kept her right hand under the dining table, wrapped around the iron key in her coat pocket, its teeth pressed into her palm. The house, the furniture you've already put colored stickers on, the lawns around it. I want the gatehouse and the strip of land out to the county road. For 3 long seconds, neither of them spoke. Then Graham laughed. It was not a cruel laugh at first. It was surprised, almost affectionate, the sound he used when somebody mispronounced the name of a wine. But when he realized Nora was serious, the warmth left it. The gatehouse, he repeated. The abandoned gatehouse? That's the one. Claire glanced toward the rain-blurred windows. From the dining room, the gatehouse was hidden by bare oaks and a long bend in the drive. It doesn't have a bathroom. It has most of one. Nora. I know what's there. That was the problem. She knew exactly what was there. She also knew what their father had promised her in that damp little building when his voice had begun failing and no one else was listening. What Nora did not know was whether Thomas Vale had kept his promise or died before he could. Graham set down his pen. Behind him, a blue sticker clung to the bottom of the mahogany sideboard. Claire had chosen blue. Graham's red dots appeared on the grandfather clock, the landscape over the fireplace, and their mother's rosewood desk. Nora had not been offered a color. They had buried Thomas the previous afternoon beneath a low, wet sky. This morning, Graham had arrived before 9 with coffee, a box of pastries, and the legal pad. Claire had brought a packet of tiny stickers from an office supply store. No one had brought breakfast for Nora because she still lived there, and people assumed the person who lived in a house knew how to feed herself. You can't just say, take the mansion, Graham said. That isn't how property works, I'm aware. We each inherited an equal interest. We need appraisals, tax advice, an actual division. You can't trade a third of Wrenwood for a cottage with mushrooms growing through the floor. They're not mushrooms. That's encouraging. It's old foam insulation. That is somehow less encouraging. Claire gave Graham a look. Could you not? What? I'm trying to understand why our sister has chosen the morning after Dad's funeral to become a woodland eccentric. The funeral was yesterday. You know what I mean? Nora did. Graham considered grief most respectable when it observed business hours. Yesterday he had cried while giving the eulogy, one large hand gripping the lectern, as he described Thomas as a man who believed anything worth having must be maintained. Then he had spent the reception telling people the slate roof was original and expensive. Claire poured coffee into Thomas's cup by mistake. She noticed the initials on the side, TV, navy blue, almost washed away, and transferred the coffee into another cup without comment. She looked exhausted. There was a snag in her black sweater, and the pale half-moons beneath her eyes had defeated whatever she had put over them. She had stayed late after the funeral, collecting glasses and folding rented chairs, while Graham discussed highway traffic with the last of the guests. Claire always did more work than people noticed, partly because she made sure they noticed the wrong work. Why the gatehouse? She asked. Nora rubbed her thumb over the key inside her pocket. Because I can manage it. You can manage more than that. The answer was so unexpected that Nora looked at her. Claire immediately glanced down. I mean, financially, maybe not. But as a share, it isn't equivalent. There's a generous opening line, Graham said. Put that on the brochure. You're the one who said she couldn't carry the taxes. She can't. Nora had heard that sentence in 6 different forms since Thomas entered hospice. Sometimes Graham made it sound practical, sometimes kind. Once in the upstairs hall, he had said it softly enough that he believed she could not hear. We need a plan for Nora, as if she were another failing system in the house, somewhere between the boiler and the east chimney. She took her hand out of her pocket and placed the key on the table. The iron was blackened with age, worn silver along one edge. A loop of cotton cord was tied through the top. Thomas had added the cord after his stroke because his fingers could no longer close firmly around the metal. Graham recognized it. His face changed, though only slightly. Dad gave me this, Nora said. When? Last winter. For what? She almost told them. The memory arrived whole. Rain on the gatehouse roof, Thomas seated at the workbench in his old canvas coat, his right arm resting uselessly against his ribs. He had watched Nora fit a small walnut patch into the damaged edge of a table. Her first attempt had left a gap. Her second sat crooked. By the fourth, she had begun to cry without making any sound. Not because of the table. Thomas had waited until she stopped. Then he had said, "Your brother thinks finishing means never having to start over." His speech had been slow by then, each phrase separated by breath. "What do you think it means?" she had asked. "Staying." He placed the key in her hand and closed her fingers around it with his left. "Before I go, I'll help you make one place nobody can reduce you inside." At the dining table, Graham was still waiting. "He wanted me to have access to the workshop," Nora said. It was true. It was also not the answer. Graham leaned back. "Access isn't ownership. I didn't say it was." "Then we agree. We agree Dad gave me the key." Claire touched Thomas's abandoned cup, turning it until his initials faced away from her. "If Nora wants the Gatehouse, we should at least look at what a fair arrangement would be." "Of course we should. I'm not trying to steal it from her." The word steal sat among the pastry crumbs. Nora looked toward the sideboard with Claire's sticker tucked discreetly under the lip. Their mother's china was inside. Thomas had not opened those cabinet doors in 12 years, but Claire wanted the sideboard because she remembered their mother polishing it on Saturday mornings. Graham followed Nora's gaze. "The stickers are preliminary. You labeled Dad's clock before the flowers from his funeral wilted. The appraiser is coming Tuesday. So, the clock might get confused?" Claire made a sound that was almost a laugh and covered it with a cough. Graham stared at both of them, wounded by their temporary alliance. "This is exactly why we need to approach this rationally," he said. "Wrenwood is a significant asset, but it's also a significant responsibility. Claire and I have discussed a way to keep it in the family and make it self-supporting. You discussed it. We tried to include you. You sent me a calendar invitation while I was changing Dad's sheets." Graham's jaw shifted. He hated reminders of the body. During Thomas's final months, he had visited every other weekend, arriving with expensive soup and questions about mortgage rates. He would sit at the bedside and talk loudly about sports, as though their father had merely misplaced his hearing. When Thomas needed to be lifted or cleaned, Graham found something downstairs requiring attention. Yet at the funeral, his grief had been real. Nora had watched him press his face against the shoulder of Thomas's old accountant and shake like a man standing in freezing water. She did not know what to do with that. It would have been easier if he loved badly in only one direction. Claire opened a folder and slid several glossy pages across the table. "We were thinking of retreats, small gatherings, leadership weekends, wellness groups, private dinners, nothing tacky." The first page showed Wrenwood in spring, photographed from below, so its white columns appeared taller. The image was old. 2 shutters had since been removed, and the boxwoods flanking the steps had died. "Wrenwood House," Nora read. "A place to return to yourself." That's placeholder copy. Do people need 14 bedrooms to find themselves? Some people require more space. Graham tapped the page. "There's demand. Claire knows events. I know sales. We refinance, make necessary improvements, establish cash flow. You refinance a house you don't own yet. We own 2/3. You own 2/3 of the responsibility too, and you just offered us the rest." There it was. Not mockery now, but interest. Nora had expected relief. Instead, the speed of his attention made her feel as though she had stepped away from a chair and watched someone take it before the cushion rose. Claire noticed. "Nobody's agreeing to anything today." "I am," Nora said. "You're grieving. So are you." "Yes, and yesterday I put my phone in the refrigerator. That explains why you didn't answer me. I spent 20 minutes accusing Graham of taking it." "He has the same phone," Graham said. It was not an irrational accusation. Claire rubbed her forehead. "My point is, we don't make permanent decisions when none of us can reliably identify kitchen appliances." Nora wanted to accept the mercy. She could go upstairs, sleep for a week, and wake with a sensible desire for money. Her truck needed a transmission. Her checking account held $583. Thomas's last prescription had gone on her credit card. She owned 3 good chisels, 4 pairs of jeans, and a certification she had failed to finish. A third of Wrenwood could change her life. But for 2 years, every room in the mansion had belonged first to Thomas's illness. The bedroom smelled of antiseptic and cedar sachets. The upstairs bathroom still held the plastic shower chair he hated. In the kitchen, Nora could not open the silverware drawer without remembering the week he forgot how forks worked and threw one at the wall. The Gatehouse held different memories. Frustration, yes. Splinters, rain. Thomas cursing his own hand. But also coffee warmed on a hot plate and the rasp of a plane crossing wood. In that place, he had asked what she thought before telling her what he thought. Sometimes he had even changed his mind. "I'm not asking for a decision today," Nora said. "I'm telling you mine." Graham studied her the way he studied contracts, searching for a concealed cost. The workshop tools stay with the main estate until they're inventoried. The tools in the Gatehouse stay there. Some are valuable. Some are mine. Which ones? The ones I bought. With what money? The question landed harder than he intended. His expression showed that he knew it, but pride kept the apology trapped behind his teeth. Nora stood and gathered the glossy pages into a tidy stack. Her chair scraped the floor with a noise too loud for the room. "With the money, people paid me for fixing things," she said. "It's called work, Graham. You might want to put it in the brochure." Outside, the rain had thinned to a gray mist. Nora crossed the back lawn in her funeral shoes, because she did not trust herself to stay inside. Wet grass darkened the leather. Behind her, Wrenwood rose broad and pale, every window reflecting the same blank sky. The Gatehouse appeared beyond the oaks, low and square beside the curve of the drive. One shutter hung crooked. Plywood covered two window openings. A blue tarp stretched over the western edge of the roof, snapping softly when the wind lifted. It looked worse than it had yesterday. Nora unlocked the door. Damp air met her, carrying the smells of stone, sawdust, and the mineral sharpness of old rain. Thomas's workbench stood beneath the boarded windows. His canvas coat remained on a peg, one sleeve turned partly inside out. She touched it, then pulled her hand back. On the bench lay the walnut table she had repaired that winter. Thomas had told her the patch would hold. She had assumed he corrected it after she left the room. Nora crouched and ran her thumb beneath the damaged edge. There was her crooked first cut, the faint crescent made by her chisel. The fourth patch, fitted tightly into place, untouched. Behind her, the door swung inward with the wind and struck the wall. A drop of cold water landed on her neck. Then another fell onto the floor beside her shoe. Nora looked up at the leaking roof. "All right," she whispered to the empty workshop. "You said finish." The roof answered with another drop. Nora found a bucket under the sink, though calling the stained enamel basin a sink was generous. It had two taps, one pipe, and no running water. She placed the bucket beneath the leak, shifted the walnut table away from the damp, and climbed the narrow stairs to the loft. The Gatehouse had once held a bedroom for the estate keeper. Thomas had torn out the warped paneling before his stroke, exposing stone on one wall and old studs on the other three. Rolled insulation stood in a corner, still wrapped in cloudy plastic. A toilet sat in its cardboard box beside three cases of tile. On the unfinished floor, Thomas had chalked a rectangle where the bathroom wall was meant to go. Nora had drawn that plan with him. She remembered kneeling there with a tape measure while he stood at the top of the stairs, impatient with her numbers. 29 3/4, she had called. "You sure?" "Yes." "You sound offended, so I believe you." The chalk was faint now, interrupted by muddy footprints left by whoever had checked the tarp before the funeral. Nora followed them to the low western window and shoved it open. "Mateo?" A figure in a green rain jacket emerged from behind the hedge. He looked up, rain shining on his close-cropped black hair. "You planning to jump?" he called. "I haven't ruled it out. Take your shoes off first. Those look expensive. They're from a clearance rack. Then definitely keep them." Mateo Cruz had managed Wrenwood's grounds for 7 years, though manage suggested a crew and a budget. Most weeks it was Mateo, an aging mower, and whatever supplies Thomas could be persuaded to approve. He had pruned the oaks, reset sections of stone wall, cleared the drive after storms, and once removed a furious raccoon from the attic with a laundry basket and language Nora had not known he possessed. He crossed to the window and tilted his head toward the roof. Tarp pulled loose at the chimney. "I noticed the indoor rain feature. I can get up there when it dries. How bad is it? How honest do you want me? Lie beautifully. Needs one nail and a prayer. That is beautiful. Truth is, the flashing's gone on one side. Tarp bought you time, but not much." She rested her arms on the sill. How much is not much, with this weather? A week, maybe 2. Can it be patched? Sure. The way he said it told her the next question mattered. How much? For the patch? Materials, maybe 300. Proper repair, more. Depends what's rotten under the slate. Nora looked back at the insulation, the boxed toilet, the lines of an imaginary bathroom. $583 became smaller every time she entered a room. Mateo studied her face. He was not nosy in the eager way, but he had a caretaker's habit of noticing damage before people named it. Your brother said somebody's coming to look at the roofs Tuesday, he said. The mansion roof. He said all structures. Did he? Sounded like he'd swallowed a microphone. Hard to tell. Nora almost smiled. If Graham sends an inspector over here, don't let anyone move Dad's tools. Mateo's expression flattened. Why would they move them? Inventory. Ah. That single sound carried the experience of a man who had watched families become committees around a death. I'm taking the Gatehouse, Nora said. His gaze moved from the exposed studs to the bucket ringing softly downstairs. On purpose? Apparently that's the consensus. You want my professional opinion? No. Good. I don't have one yet. A gust pushed mist through the open window. Nora drew back and closed it. When she came downstairs, Mateo was waiting under the shallow stone overhang. He held out a folded sheet of paper, protected inside a clear plastic bag. Found this in the machine shed. Your dad had it under a box of mower parts. It was not a deed or a letter. It was a lumber order, 6 months old and partly filled. Cedar trim, floorboards, 2 lengths of oak. Thomas's handwriting occupied the notes section in uneven block capitals. Gatehouse. Nora. Confirm with. Her throat tightened anyway. He kept ordering things he couldn't use, Mateo said. He thought if materials arrived, his body would get embarrassed and cooperate. That sounds like him. Did the floorboards come? Half. He canceled the rest after the hospital. Nora folded the order along its existing creases. Where are they? Back of the machine shed. Graham's inventory people might count them Tuesday. They were ordered for the Gatehouse. I can read. Sorry. Mateo shrugged. You've been apologizing to furniture all week. I'm not taking it personally. He headed toward the drive, then stopped. I'll fix the tarp this afternoon if the rain quits. I can't pay you today. I didn't ask you to. I'm not letting you work for free. Then hold the ladder and don't talk while I'm on it. That usually costs extra. Before Nora could answer, Claire called from the lawn. There you are. She approached beneath a black umbrella, stepping carefully around the mud. Even in funeral clothes and wet grass, she moved as if the ground had been informed she was coming. She gave Mateo a brief smile. Graham wants to know where the folder went. What folder? The retreat proposal. I stacked it on the table. He says 1 page is missing. Then the mansion has started eating paperwork. That'll be charming for guests. Claire stopped beneath the overhang. The umbrella dripped between them. Can we talk? Mateo looked at Nora. Ladder. Later. After he left, Claire lowered the umbrella but did not close it, leaving it spread like a shield at her hip. You embarrassed him. He recovered. He's trying to hold things together. He put a sticker on the clock. I told him the stickers were too much. You brought them. Yes, Nora. And then I discovered an idea can be both efficient and horrifying. Growth. Nora looked at her sister. Claire's lower lip trembled once before she tightened it. The sight unsettled Nora more than tears would have. What do you want? She asked. For today? I want Graham not to speak to me like I'm his event coordinator. I want Dad's bedroom door to stop being open every time I walk past it. I want you to eat one of the pastries before they become a symbolic accusation. I had toast. Of course you did. What does that mean? It means you've been living on toast and moral superiority since November. Nora folded her arms. That's not true. There was soup once. The laugh escaped Nora before she could stop it. Claire smiled, and for a moment they stood inside an older, easier rhythm. Then Claire looked through the open gatehouse door. Oh, Nora, the softness of it ruined everything. Don't. I didn't say anything. You said it with my name. Claire stepped inside. Her heel met a patch of sawdust and slid. She caught the workbench, nearly dropping the umbrella. Elegant, Nora said. I'm grieving. That defense has range. Claire straightened and examined the room. She touched Thomas's coat where Nora had touched it, using 2 fingers near the shoulder. He wore this to Thanksgiving dinner. He was cold. He looked like he planned to repair the turkey. Nora remembered. Thomas had refused the gray cardigan Claire bought him because it made him look, he said, like a man who taught unpleasant poetry. He He wore the canvas coat through dinner, with a folded napkin tucked into the collar. Claire's fingers stayed on the fabric. You spent a lot of time out here. We worked. I know. Nora waited. Claire turned from the coat. I know you worked. Graham knows too. He has an unusual way of expressing it. Graham thinks money is the only form of help that can be measured. He likes measurements where he wins. And you? I brought groceries. You left before Dad needed to be put to bed. There it was. Nora had not planned to say it, which made it sharper. Claire closed the umbrella. Water ran onto the stone floor. Yes, she said. No defense, no counterattack. Nora wished she had given her one. Claire walked toward the walnut table. Is this Ruth Calder's? I think so. Dad told her it would be done by Christmas. He told everybody everything would be done by Christmas. You could finish it. Nora glanced at the patched edge. Maybe. Ruth asked about it after the funeral. She said not to rush, which means she's thinking about it constantly, but feels guilty because Dad died. That sounds like Ruth. She also left 3 casseroles. One is labeled mild and is bright orange, so proceed carefully. Claire moved toward the door, then hesitated. I came to tell you Graham wants the tools in the main garage before the appraiser comes. They're not going. I told him you'd say that. And I told him moving them today would make him look like a jackass. Did that work? No, but he spent 10 minutes explaining why it wouldn't, which bought you time. Nora leaned against the workbench. Are you really going to do this retreat thing with him? Claire looked back at the mansion. Through the trees, only a slice of white wall and one dark window showed. I think the house could work, she said. People loved coming here. People loved coming when Dad was alive. People loved the place too. Did you? Claire's answer took too long. I loved what it looked like when we were all in it, she said finally. She stepped into the rain and opened the umbrella. Nora remained in the gatehouse after Claire disappeared around the bend. A fly buzzed weakly against one boarded window. Water struck the bucket with patient, hollow notes. She carried Ruth's walnut table into the center of the room and wiped dust from the top. The remaining work was not complicated. One corner needed to be squared. The old finish had to be removed without flattening the marks that gave the wood its depth. Thomas had left fine pencil lines beneath the damaged edge, showing where the repair should end. Nora found her apron hanging from a peg and tied it on over her funeral dress. The absurdity would have pleased him. She had just clamped the table when an engine sounded outside. Graham's SUV rolled down the drive and stopped beside the gatehouse. He got out without a coat, carrying the retreat folder. Nora did not stop tightening the clamp. You have the missing page, he said. She looked down. A glossy sheet protruded from beneath one leg of the table, where someone had used it to level the uneven floor. At the top, in gold letters, were the words, Your Legacy, Elevated. Nora pulled it free, brushed off the grit, and handed it to him. Graham stared at the footprint across the center. That wasn't me, she said. He looked past her at the tools. We need to establish some boundaries. For once, Nora agreed. Yes, she said, we do. Graham folded the damaged page in half, hiding the gold lettering and most of the footprint. Until the estate is divided, you can't simply claim a building and everything in it. Then Claire can't claim the sideboard, and you can't claim the clock. The stickers are not claims. They're decorative threats. They identify preferences. So, does me living here? You don't live here? Nora glanced at the bucket catching water. Not elegantly. You know what I mean. Graham stepped farther into the workshop. His attention moved across the hand planes mounted above the bench, the cabinet of carving tools, the clamps hanging from iron pegs. Thomas had kept every edge sharpened and every handle oiled, even after he could no longer use most of them. These tools belong to Dad's estate. Some do, some don't. Then we document which is which. I can show you receipts for mine. With Dad's money, why are you so committed to the idea that no one has ever paid me? I'm not committed to anything. I'm asking ordinary questions. No, you're asking the same question in different outfits. His cheeks colored. I paid the insurance on this property for the last 18 months, and I changed the dressings on the pressure sore below Dad's spine. The silence afterward was immediate and ugly. Graham looked down at the folded page in his hand. Nora could have chosen a dozen other examples. She had chosen the one that made him see Thomas's body, thin and furious, turned onto his side in the upstairs bed. It was not fair. It was also true. I didn't know about that, he said. You didn't ask? Would you have told me if you'd asked the right question? What was the right question, Nora? Because every time I came here, you acted like I was contaminating the air. You walked into his room and asked if the house had been winterized, because no one else was thinking about it. I was thinking about whether he could swallow water, and I was trying to make sure there was still a house around him when he could. His voice cracked on the last word. Graham turned away so quickly he nearly struck his shoulder on a hanging clamp. That was how he surprised her. Not by being better than she believed exactly, but by revealing that his worst qualities had roots tangled around something human. He ran one hand over the back of his neck. I know you did the hard things. Do you? Yes. You never said it. You never made it easy to say anything. Nora looked at Thomas's coat. One sleeve hung inside out, as though an arm had just been pulled from it. Outside, Mateo's utility cart rattled over the gravel with an extension ladder strapped across the top. The noise gave both of them somewhere else to look. Graham cleared his throat. The appraiser will inventory the tools Tuesday. Put your receipts with them. Anything you can establish as yours won't be included, and nothing leaves before then. He hesitated. Graham? Fine. Nothing leaves, including the floorboards in the machine shed. What floorboards? The ones Dad ordered for this building. I haven't seen them. Mateo has. Graham's mouth tightened at the implication that Mateo's knowledge counted. If they were paid for by Dad, they're part of the inventory. They were ordered for the Gatehouse. And if you end up owning the Gatehouse, they can be considered with it. If, Nora, we have been discussing this for 3 hours. You cannot make a division legally real by repeating it in a damp room. No, but you can hire a photographer for a business that doesn't exist. That's exploratory. Everything you do is exploratory until somebody else gets the bill. He unfolded the ruined brochure page, stared at it, then folded it the other way. I came here to ask for one piece of paper. You asked for boundaries. I regret expanding the agenda. Mateo appeared in the doorway carrying the ladder alone. Good afternoon. Graham glanced outside. What are you doing? Getting on a roof. It's wet. That's why I waited until it was less wet. Did I approve roof work? Mateo shifted the ladder against his shoulder. No. Then why are you doing it? Because the tarp is loose. I have a roof inspection scheduled Tuesday. Rain is scheduled tonight. Nora watched Graham process the fact that weather had failed to consult him. Fine, he said. Secure the tarp. Nothing beyond that until we know the condition of all the roofs. Mateo looked at Nora, then back at Graham. Sure. Graham left with the folded page, walking too fast across the mud in shoes with smooth soles. Halfway to his SUV, he slipped, caught himself on the hood, and looked back as if the property had done it deliberately. Mateo waited until the vehicle disappeared around the bend. He approves the rain, he asked, only provisionally. They carried the ladder around the western wall. The gatehouse roof was low but steep, laid in dark slate patched over the years, with whatever Thomas considered close enough. Mateo tested the ground before setting the ladder. You hold it, he said. 2 hands. I know how to hold a ladder. I've seen you reverse a truck into a wheelbarrow. The wheelbarrow had no business there. 2 hands. Nora planted her funeral shoes in the mud and gripped the rails while he climbed. From above came the scrape of slate, the flap of tarp, and several comments in Spanish that sounded uncomplimentary. How bad, she called. You requested beautiful lies earlier. I'm ready for ugly truth. The flashing's worse than I thought. Wood around the chimney is soft. How soft? He pushed something. The roof made a wet crunch. Cake. Nora closed her eyes. But the rafters I can see look sound. That's good. How good? Not $300 good. Of course not. Mateo leaned over the edge. You really taking this place? Yes. Why? Everyone keeps asking me that. Maybe you keep giving bad answers. She tightened her grip on the ladder. Dad and I were fixing it. You and your dad were fixing everything, usually in an order known only to him. He said this one mattered. Mateo disappeared from view. Then we keep it dry. He reset the tarp, securing it with boards from behind the gatehouse. The work took 40 minutes. By the time he climbed down, mud covered Nora's shoes past the stitching. Mateo examined them. Clearance rack, 40% off. Still a loss. Inside, he noticed the walnut table clamped beneath the boarded window. Ruth's, everybody knows this table. Ruth tells people about her furniture like they're relatives. I'm going to finish it. You should. Nora waited for him to add something reassuring. He picked up a rag and wiped rain from the ladder instead. "Do you know anyone who'll repair flashing without charging me like I own a mansion?" she asked. "I can do it. You just told Graham you were securing the tarp. I contain multitudes. How much? For labor?" "For all of it. I need to see under the slate when it's dry. I'll price materials. And labor." He kept wiping the ladder. "You can repair a cedar chest. Depends what's wrong with it. Top split. One hinge tore out. It was my mother's." Nora knew of Elena Cruz only through the things Mateo mentioned sideways. She had planted rosemary near the machine shed, hated electric stoves, and once chased Thomas off her porch with a broom during an argument over a fence. She had died 2 years earlier. Mateo kept her cedar chest in his apartment over a hardware store in town, because he did not trust the damp in Renwood's outbuildings. "You want to trade?" Nora asked. "I want the chest fixed. You want the roof fixed. Society begins." That sounds suspiciously like a professional opinion. It's not. I'm still forming one. She worked until the room lost its gray daylight. The motions returned slowly, soften the old finish, scrape with the grain, check the repair with her fingertips, instead of trusting how it looked. Thomas had taught with maddening questions. "What do you feel?" "Wood." "What kind?" "Annoying wood." He would wait. "Walnut." "Old or new?" "Old." "Then why are you trying to make it look new?" At 7, Claire appeared with a plate covered in foil and a cordless work light. "I brought casserole and electricity." The 2 pillars of civilization. Claire set the light on the bench. "Graham says the tools can stay until Tuesday." "I know. He issued a decree. He also says if you're serious about the Gatehouse, we need to list what you're giving up and get independent values." "That's fine." Claire blinked. "Fine? I don't want you saying later that I tricked you." "I wouldn't say that. Graham would." "Yes, but Graham sometimes begins an argument with the conclusion and builds backward." Nora lifted the foil. The casserole was indeed orange. "Is this the mild one?" "No." Ruth labeled this one Comfort. "It appears to be armed." Claire watched her set it aside. "Are you sleeping in the house tonight? Where else would I sleep?" Claire's attention moved toward the ceiling and the bucket. "I don't know. Your woodland principality? The toilet is in a box." "So, that's a no?" "That's a no." Claire nodded, relieved enough to irritate Nora. "The photographer is coming Friday," she said. "We need to clear the personal things from the main rooms. I'll do most of it. But your sewing basket is in the morning room, and there are boxes in the upstairs hall. Those boxes are Dad's medical supplies." "I know." "Then call them what they are." Claire absorbed that. "Dad's medical supplies need to be removed from the hall." "Where do you want them?" "I thought the Gatehouse." "No, they're unopened." "No, we can donate them." "Then donate them. Don't bring them here." Claire's face tightened. "I wasn't trying to be insensitive. You were trying to make the mansion look like nobody suffered in it. I'm trying to take pictures without a portable commode in the background." The bluntness stopped Nora. Claire crossed her arms. "I cleaned that commode, by the way. Once, yes. Once, badly. I cried in the laundry room afterward, and you never knew because you were busy being the only person who loved him correctly." Nora set down the foil. Claire's eyes filled, but her voice stayed controlled. "I left because I was afraid. You stayed because you were afraid. We just picked different directions." The work light cast hard shadows beneath her eyes. Nora had no answer that did not sound rehearsed. Claire picked up her umbrella. "Eat something," she said, "and please move your boxes before Friday." She left the casserole behind. Nora finished Ruth's table the next afternoon. There was no ceremony to it. The final coat dried smooth and low gloss, preserving the shallow dents along the apron and the pale circle where a vase had once stood. Nora loaded it into her truck with Mateo's help and drove to Ruth Calder's brick duplex on the edge of town. Ruth opened the door before Nora knocked. She was 70, silver-haired, and built like someone who had spent 40 years moving patients who insisted they could move themselves. "Oh," she said when she saw the table. Her hand went to her chest. "Tom said he'd ruined it." "He said that?" "After he got sick. He said you were attempting a rescue. That sounds more like him." They carried it inside and set it beneath Ruth's front window. She ran her hand over the repaired edge, found Nora's patch, and pressed her thumb there. "You did this. Dad started the job. I asked who did this." Nora looked at the tight seam. "I did." Ruth nodded once, as if Nora had finally given the correct dosage. Then she wrote a check for the full amount Thomas had quoted before his stroke. Nora stared at it. This is too much. It is the agreed price. He didn't finish it. You did. I was practicing. Not on my table, you weren't. Ruth pushed the check into Nora's hand. Tom was many things, but charitable with Walnut was not one of them. On the drive back, the check lay on the passenger seat, lifting at one corner whenever air came through the broken window seal. It would not cover the roof. It would not finish the bathroom or replace the missing windows. But it was money someone had paid her for finishing. At Wrenwood, Graham's SUV and Claire's car were parked beside a white van. Two men were carrying Thomas's adjustable bed down the front steps. Nora stopped her truck in the drive. Graham came out holding a roll of trash bags. Good, he said. You're back. We need to clear your room next. Nora kept both hands on the steering wheel. My room? Graham shifted the trash bags under his arm. For the photographs. We need to remove personal items. It's a bedroom. Personal items are the general theme. We want it neutral. Then photograph a wall. One of the men carrying the adjustable bed glanced over. The other murmured something, and they concentrated intensely on the ramp into the van. Claire appeared in the doorway with Thomas's plastic shower chair. She had changed into jeans and an old Wrenwood sweatshirt, her hair tied in a knot that had begun falling apart. When she saw Nora's truck, she stopped. I thought you were taking that to the donation center tomorrow, Nora said. They had a cancellation, Claire said. They came today. So you called them? Yes. You could have told me. I did. Last night. You said the supplies. I said we were clearing the hall. That's his bed. Graham looked toward the workers. Could we not do this in front of people? They're carrying a dead man's bed. I think they've detected the situation. Claire set the shower chair inside the doorway. Nora, the equipment is going to a rehabilitation loan program. Somebody will use it. I know what donation means. Then what's wrong? Nothing she could defend. The mattress was gone. The fitted sheet had been removed. All that remained was the metal frame, its electric cord looped around the foot, one wheel squeaking as the men rolled it up the ramp. Nora remembered that wheel. It had squeaked during every midnight adjustment, a tiny complaint beneath Thomas's heavier ones. She put the truck in park, but did not turn off the engine. The check on the passenger seat fluttered in the warm air blowing through the vents. Ruth Calder had written Nora Vale in clean capital letters. It looked like proof of a person she could not quite become while sitting in the drive. What exactly do you want cleared from my room? She asked. Graham relaxed, hearing cooperation. Clothes, papers, toiletries, the books piled on the floor. Anything visibly yours. That's everything. We can box it. And put it where? He glanced toward the gatehouse. Nora laughed once. Claire came down the steps. Not all of it. We can move things into the attic until we know what everyone's doing. The attic with the roof leak? The leak is on the other side. So my things get the good leak. I'm offering an alternative. To what? Being relocated to the building you both think is uninhabitable? Graham lowered his voice. You chose it. Yesterday. And you were very clear. I was clear that I wanted it in the division. I didn't say I could move in by Friday so your imaginary executives wouldn't see a hairbrush. It's not about executives seeing a hairbrush. A photographer needs clean visual lines. Then take down the family portraits. We are. That answer struck somewhere Nora had not protected. Claire closed her eyes briefly. Graham. What? We can put them back. Nora shut off the engine. The sudden quiet made the white van seem louder. She got out, folded Ruth's check in half, and placed it in her coat pocket. You don't need to box anything. I'll do it. Nora, Claire said, you don't have to move out. No, I just have to remove all evidence that I live here. It's one photo session. It's the first one. Graham's patience thinned. We all have to make adjustments if this house is going to support itself. You haven't made one. I paid, don't say insurance. We've done that scene. His mouth closed. Nora walked past them and up the front steps. She kept her eyes away from the shower chair. Inside, the center hall smelled of furniture polish and the hyacinths somebody had brought after the funeral. Several arrangements had begun to sour. Graham's red and Claire's blue stickers appeared under tables and on the backs of frames, visible only when Nora looked for them, which now she always did. Thomas's bedroom door stood open. The bed was gone, leaving 4 clean squares in the carpet where the wheels had rested. Without the machinery, the room looked larger and less honest. A water ring remained on the bedside table. His reading glasses sat beside it, one lens smudged. They had remembered to donate the bed, but forgotten the glasses. Nora picked them up. Through the smeared lens, the room blurred at one edge. Claire entered behind her. I was going to pack those. Blue sticker or red. Stop. Do you want the bedside table? I don't care about the bedside table. Then why is there a blue sticker under it? Because I panicked. Nora looked at her. Claire sat on the bare edge of the mattress indentation, realized there was nothing beneath her, and stood again. The awkward movement might have been funny anywhere else. I walked into the dining room yesterday, she said, and Graham was making a list. He handed me stickers and said, we should identify sentimental pieces before the appraiser grouped everything together. I started sticking them on things Mom touched. She touched the toaster. I know. You missed it. I don't want the toaster. That sounds disloyal. Claire pressed her fingers against her eyelids. I don't know what I want. The sideboard smelled like lemon oil every Saturday for half my life, so I put a sticker on it. The desk was where she wrote Christmas cards, so I put a sticker on that. Then I realized I'd marked a lamp I hate, but removing the sticker felt like killing her. Nora's anger shifted, not disappearing but losing the clean edge that made it useful. She folded Thomas's glasses and slipped them into her pocket beside Ruth's check. I'm taking these, okay, and his coat. Okay. The tools that are mine. Yes. Don't say yes for Graham. I'm saying yes for me. From the hall came the scrape of the shower chair being moved. Claire flinched. Nora noticed. Did you really clean it? She asked. Claire stared at the carpet. Once? When? The night before he went into hospice. You were asleep in the chair. Nora remembered waking near dawn with a blanket over her and a cold cup of coffee on the table. She had assumed Thomas managed the coffee himself before his hands began shaking. He was so embarrassed, Claire said. I kept talking about a woman who spilled red wine at a fundraiser because I couldn't think of anything else. He told me the story was boring. It probably was. It was awful. He hated fundraiser stories. I know that now. They stood inside the stripped room, listening as the van doors closed outside. Nora touched the glasses in her pocket. I'm still moving my things. You don't have to punish yourself to punish Graham. I'm not. You have no toilet. I have a toilet. It's just extremely portable at the moment. You have no shower. The mansion has 12. And a photographer. I'll try not to appear nude in the visual lines. Claire's laugh came out wet and unwilling. She wiped beneath one eye. Take the room at the back of the West Hall for now. It won't be photographed. No? Why? Because accepting a hidden bedroom while Graham displayed the rest of Wrenwood felt like becoming a secret the house was ashamed of. Because Thomas had promised her a place where no one reduced her, and every offer inside the mansion now arrived already reduced. I chose the Gatehouse, Nora said. I might as well find out what that means. By evening, her life had become 9 cardboard boxes, 4 canvas bags, a sewing basket, and 1 stack of books Graham complained was too heavy after insisting he could carry it alone. Mateo arrived with a utility cart and did not ask whether moving into a roof leak was wise. He carried the boxes marked tools first. Those stay away from the wet wall, Nora told him. They stay away from every wall. Your walls are ambitious. Graham brought her small dresser down on a hand truck. This thing weighs more than the clock. You put a sticker on it? No? Then try not to damage it. He set the hand truck down harder than necessary. You're choosing to make this dramatic. I'm moving quietly. You're narrating. Claire carried bedding and the cordless work light. She had found an unopened camp mattress in the attic, still inside a bag from a trip none of them remembered taking. They inflated it in the loft between the chalk bathroom lines and the wrapped insulation. When it was full, it hissed faintly. That seems promising, Nora said. It's probably the valve, Mateo said. Lie beautifully. It's singing. Claire arranged 2 pillows at the head. You can still come inside. I know. Graham stood at the top of the stairs, looking at the boxed toilet. This is absurd. You got what you wanted. I wanted a clear room, not a medical emergency at the bottom of a staircase. Touching, I mean it. Stay in the house until this is functional. Nora looked at him. For all his impatience, he was genuinely worried. That almost made it worse. If I stay, she said, does my room remain mine? It remains available to you. That isn't what I asked. He shoved his hands into his pockets. The house has to change. So do I. She went downstairs before he could answer. They ate Ruth's orange casserole around the workbench because Claire had brought plates but forgotten forks. Mateo found 4 in a coffee tin labeled screws, which raised questions no one could answer. The casserole tasted mostly of the cheese and pepper. Mild? Graham asked after the first bite. Comfort, Nora said. Comfort is aggressive. Mateo finished his before anyone else. Ruth believes suffering should be distracted by digestion. For 10 minutes they ate without discussing property, death, roofs, or visual lines. Claire told them about putting her phone in the refrigerator. Graham claimed she had accused him for longer than 20 minutes. Nora discovered Mateo had once watched Thomas use a kitchen fork to clean a paint sprayer and quietly understood the coffee tin. Afterward, Graham carried the plates back to the mansion. Claire left the work light and hugged Nora too quickly to be refused. Mateo checked the tarp, then handed Nora a flashlight. Wind's turning, he said. Put another bucket under the chimney wall. I only have one. You have bowls? Apparently I no longer have access to 12 bedrooms, but I do have bowls. He studied her, deciding whether to argue. Call if the tarp goes. What will you do? Complain while fixing it. When they were gone, the gatehouse settled around her. Nora placed metal mixing bowls beneath 3 separate drips. She washed her face using water from a jug and changed behind an old drop cloth because the plywood over the windows had gaps. Upstairs, the camp mattress had lost enough air to sag in the middle. She lay down fully dressed except for her shoes. Rain began after midnight. It struck the slate, ran through the broken flashing, and tapped into the bowls below at different pitches. A slow note near the workbench. A quicker one by the chimney. The bucket answered from the corner. Nora stared into the dark until the rhythm almost became music. Then the mattress exhaled beneath her, lowering her gently onto the unfinished floor. She laughed. It came out too loud, bounced off the bare studs, and turned into something that hurt. Nora covered her face with both hands and let the rain make enough noise that no one in the mansion could possibly hear her. By morning, the bowls had filled at different rates, and the camp mattress had become a rubber blanket beneath her spine. Nora woke to someone knocking on the gatehouse door, not the polite front door knock people used at Wrenwood. 3 hard strikes, a pause, then 2 more. She sat up too quickly and hit her shoulder against an exposed stud. Coming. The stairs were cold beneath her bare feet. She pulled Thomas's canvas coat over her clothes and opened the door. Graham stood outside, holding 2 cups of coffee. He looked at the coat, then at her hair, then past her at the bowls on the floor. I came to make sure you weren't dead. Is that coffee contingent on the answer? He handed her one. It had milk but no sugar, exactly right. Roof inspection at 10, he said. The estate appraiser will be here at 11. What time is it? 8:30. That's not morning. That's an accusation. You used to be up at 6 with Dad. Dad had medication at 6. I did not develop a passion for Dawn. Graham leaned against the doorframe. He had shaved, but one side of his collar was folded under. How was the mattress? Musical? I told you this was absurd. You brought coffee to an absurd person. I brought it because Claire said you'd try to use the hot plate before checking the cord, and she's convinced this building is waiting to electrocute you. Nora glanced at the hot plate. Its cord was wrapped around the base. The insulation cracked near the plug. Traitor, she muttered. What? Nothing. Graham pointed toward the mansion with his cup. Shower before 10 if you want one. Claire's cleaning the bathrooms for Friday. Am I likely to lose shower privileges after 10? Don't start. You started with a deadline. I'm telling you what's happening in the house. You're telling me when I'm allowed to wash. I am asking you, in what I believed was a normal way, to avoid walking through a freshly cleaned bathroom in muddy shoes. I can bring indoor shoes. Fine. And I'd like a kitchen shelf. For what? Food, Graham. There's a refrigerator here. There is a beige appliance with moss in the seal. We'll clean it. I'll clean it. Also fine. The ease with which he agreed made her suspicious. He looked into the workshop again. You really slept here. I made a speech and everything. It would have been embarrassing to come back. Nora, I'm fine. You have a mark on your face. She touched her cheek and felt the ridged impression of the mattress valve. It's decorative. He did not smile. You don't get extra points for being miserable. Who would award them? The appraiser? I'm serious. So am I. This is where I'm going to live. It needs a roof and plumbing, not a family debate every morning. Graham took a slow drink of coffee. The gatehouse may be worth more as part of the full property than it is separated. Then, it's lucky I'm not asking what it's worth to you. His jaw tightened, but he nodded once. 11 o'clock. He headed back up the drive. Nora watched him go, then tasted the coffee. It was good. Graham made excellent coffee because he treated measurements as a moral code. At 9:45, she returned from the mansion shower, carrying a laundry basket filled with food, 2 towels, and every fork she could find in the coffee tin. Claire intercepted her in the center hall with a spray bottle in one hand. "Did you wear indoor shoes?" Nora lifted one foot to display an old slipper. "Thank you. You sound shocked." "I'm choosing not to live in expectation." Nora continued toward the kitchen. Claire followed. "How long are you keeping things in the main refrigerator? A day? Maybe 2. The caterer is coming Thursday to look at the kitchen." "What caterer?" "A potential partner, for dinners and retreats. I need somewhere to keep milk." "I know. I'm just saying we need to coordinate." Nora opened the refrigerator. Claire had removed most of Thomas's old condiments, leaving bright empty shelves that smelled of baking soda. "Which shelf photographs best?" Nora asked. "It isn't about photographs. Then I'll take the bottom." "The bottom is fine." Nora set down the milk, eggs, cheese, and half of Ruth's casserole. Claire watched as though each object might roll uphill and ruin the business plan. "What?" Nora asked. "Nothing. You're staring at my eggs. I'm wondering how long this in-between period lasts. For me or the eggs. You know what I mean?" "No, I don't." "You want me out of my room, but my food in the gatehouse is inconvenient, my shower schedule is inconvenient, and apparently the eggs are creating uncertainty. I'm trying to make the house usable." "It was usable. Dad used it while he was dying." Claire recoiled. Nora shut the refrigerator. "That came out wrong. It came out exactly how you wanted it to." "No." "Yes. You want every plan we make to sound like we're erasing him. You took down his pictures, for one photograph. You moved his bed, to a place that lends medical equipment to adults who can't afford it." "I know. Do you?" Claire set the spray bottle on the counter harder than necessary. "Because you looked at me yesterday like I had sold his bones." Nora gripped the laundry basket. "I wasn't ready. Neither was I. They called and said they had a van. You could have waited. I could have. Then I would have had to look at that bed another night, and I couldn't." The kitchen clock ticked behind them. It had been 7 minutes slow since Thomas tried to repair it and lost one tiny brass screw. Claire picked up the spray bottle again. "Keep your food on the bottom shelf. Just tell me if you need more space." It was an offer disguised as irritation. Nora knew, because that was how the Vale family gave most things. At 10, the roof inspector climbed onto the gatehouse while Nora and Mateo stood below. He came down with wet knees, 3 broken pieces of slate, and an estimate that used 4 digits before the decimal. "That includes replacing the flashing and damaged decking," he said. "You could patch it, but I wouldn't promise how long." "How long would you refuse to promise?" Nora asked. He considered. "Through spring." It was November. The inspector moved on to the mansion, where Graham waited with his yellow legal pad. Mateo took the estimate from Nora. He priced it like a company with 3 trucks. He is a company with 3 trucks. "I have 1 truck. Your truck has a lawnmower attached to it. Then I'm efficient. You said you'd price materials. I did." He removed a folded receipt from his jacket. $620 if I can reuse the good slate and get flashing from Corbett's. Nora had deposited Ruth's check that morning. Even with it, $620 would leave almost nothing. "And the cedar chest?" she asked. "Labor for labor." "What if your roof labor is worth more? What if your chest labor is?" "I haven't seen it. I've seen the table." He held the receipt out. Nora took it. "Society begins," she said, "usually with worse terms." The estate appraiser arrived in a small gray sedan at 11. She was a compact woman named Denise who wore white gloves only when touching polished furniture and ignored Graham's explanations unless they answered a question she had asked. Nora walked her through the gatehouse tools. She placed her own receipts on the workbench: chisels, a block plane, clamps, sharpening stones, a second-hand router. The total looked painfully small beside Thomas's collection. Denise marked each of Nora's purchases with removable green tape. "What about the main bench?" Nora asked. "Built in place?" Denise crouched to examine it. "Attached to the wall and floor. I'd consider it part of the structure." Graham wrote that down. "The planes above it?" he asked. "Personal property." "Dad wanted them used here," Nora said. Graham looked at her. "Did he say that?" He used them here for 30 years. That isn't the same thing. Denise stood, peeled off one glove, and tucked it into the other. I can value the tools separately, or as a working collection. What you decide to do with them is a family matter. She said family matter with the calm of someone who had escaped several. When Denise moved upstairs to inspect the boxed fixtures, Graham approached the tool wall. Some of these should be sold, he said. Nora stared at him. No, Dad hasn't used them in years. I use them. All of them? Most. Then their value can count toward your share. So can the sideboard toward Claire's. It will, and the clock toward yours. Yes. His consistency was infuriating. She wanted greed she could expose, not arithmetic he applied to himself. The collection is worth more together, he continued. If you want individual tools, identify them before Denise finishes the report. Nora looked at the row of planes. Thomas's hand had darkened their wooden handles over decades. As a girl, she had thought each one did the same thing, and that he owned so many because he enjoyed making choices difficult. Later, he taught her how a smoothing plane whispered differently from a jack plane when the blade was set right. Choosing among them felt like cutting apart a language. I'll make a list, she said. Graham nodded. That's reasonable. She hated him most when he sounded relieved by her reasonableness. Denise appraised the mansion all afternoon. Nora remained in the workshop, writing down tools, crossing them out, writing them again. Near 4, Matteo returned with his mother's cedar chest strapped into the utility cart. The chest was worse than he had described. The split ran almost the full length of the lid. One brass hinge had torn free, taking a jagged section of cedar with it. You said one hinge, Nora said. It is one hinge. You omitted the surrounding disaster. I didn't want to prejudice your professional opinion. Together, they lifted it onto sawhorses. When Nora opened the lid, the scent of cedar rose clean and sharp. Inside lay a folded green apron, several recipe cards tied with string, and a pair of gardening gloves stiff with dried soil. Matteo removed the apron and cards carefully. He left the gloves. She kept everything in here, he said. Nora ran her fingers near the split without touching it. The lid can be saved. You sure? No. He smiled. Good answer. A knock sounded at the open door. A woman Nora vaguely recognized from Thomas's funeral stood outside beside a battered blue station wagon. A tall storm door protruded from the back, tied down with orange rope. Ruth Calder sent me, the woman said. She says you fix things people have been told to replace. Nora looked at Matteo's chest, the tool list, and the roof estimate lying beneath a clamp. Then she looked at the storm door. I can take a look, she said. The woman backed the station wagon closer, though not close enough to make unloading easy. May Collins, she said, offering Nora a hand. I met your father twice. Once when he repaired a church pew, and once when he told the church committee they had ruined the other 11. That sounds like Dad. He was not diplomatic. He considered diplomacy dishonest carpentry. May laughed. She was in her late 50s with short gray blonde hair and a denim shirt buttoned wrong at the bottom. Ruth said you were easier. Ruth has known me during a very limited period. Matteo untied the orange rope. Together they eased the storm door from the station wagon and carried it into the workshop. It was painted white over at least 3 older colors. The lower rail had softened around one corner, and a diagonal crack ran from the handle to the edge of the glass. I had 2 companies tell me to replace it, May said. One called it a sentimental liability. Did they sell doors? Exclusively. Nora laid it across padded sawhorses. Beneath the peeling paint, the wood was old-growth pine, tight-grained and heavier than the replacements she had seen stacked in home improvement stores. The damaged lower corner gave slightly under her thumb, but the rot did not extend far. Where was it hanging? She asked. Front porch, west side. Does the porch get wet? It gets weather. I've had conversations with it. The bottom needs a patch, the crack can be stabilized, and I'd reset the glass. But if water keeps collecting under it, you'll have the same problem again. May nodded as if Nora had confirmed a medical concern. How much? Nora calculated materials, then tried to calculate the worth of hours she had not yet spent. Numbers had been easier when Thomas named them. 200, she said. Matteo made a small coughing sound. May looked at him. You all right? Sudden math. Nora ignored him. That doesn't include rehanging it. My neighbor can do that. Then 200. Ruth said you'd undercharge. Ruth has become very involved in my business. She wrote 300 on a piece of paper and told me not to negotiate downward. Mateo busied himself arranging clamps, his face offensively neutral. Nora felt heat rise into her cheeks. She shouldn't have done that. She was a cardiac nurse for 28 years. People telling her what she shouldn't do is recreational for her. May opened her purse. How much of the 300 do you need now? Materials will be about 80. May handed her a $100 bill. Write me something. Nora found an old receipt book in the bench drawer. Thomas Vale Restoration was printed across the top in faded green. She stared at it too long. I can use plain paper, May said gently. No, this is fine. Nora wrote May Collins, storm door. Repair deposit $100. On the line marked estimated completion, her pen stopped. How soon do you need it? Before the weather turns. Mateo looked toward the rain-dark doorway. May followed his gaze. Turns worse. Monday, Nora said. After the station wagon left, Mateo waited exactly 6 seconds. 200? Ruth had no right. Ruth has excellent instincts. It's one patch. It's stripping, patching, stabilizing a crack, resetting glass, priming, painting, and being blamed if May's neighbor hangs it upside down. He won't. You've met him? No. Then allow for imagination. Nora tore a scrap from the receipt book and began listing materials. If I charge too much, she'll go somewhere else. She came because she doesn't want somewhere else. You sound like Dad. Your dad charged me $60 to sharpen mower blades he could have sharpened while asleep. He probably did. He's still charged. Nora placed the 100 in an envelope and wrote roof across the front. I gave her a price. I'm keeping it. Mateo watched her slide the envelope under the cash box. All right, that's it. I contain restraint. You contain opinions. They're expensive. I don't give them away. The next morning, Mateo drove to Corbett's for roofing materials, while Nora began separating the storm door's glass from its brittle glazing. She had just removed the last point without breaking the pane when Claire hurried into the gatehouse carrying a brass handle in one hand. Can you come inside? Is anything on fire? No. Bleeding? No. Actively falling? Claire held up the handle. The morning room door came off in my hand. That sounds like it is completed falling. The photographer is coming Friday, I've heard. And Lana Pierce is coming tomorrow to look at the kitchen and dining rooms. The caterer. She runs private dining experiences. That's a caterer with adjectives. Can you please come look? Nora glanced at May's door. I have work. It'll take 10 minutes. Nothing in Wrenwood had ever taken 10 minutes. The morning room doors were a pair of tall French doors with rippled glass and brass handles polished so aggressively that the plates had thinned at the edges. One handle had pulled free because the screws no longer caught in the wood. Claire stood beside Nora as she examined it. Can you fill the holes? I can plug them and reset the screws. Today? Yes. Thank you. Nora fetched oak dowel and glue from the gatehouse. While she worked, Claire moved vases from one table to another, stepped back, frowned, and moved them again. Who are the flowers for? Nora asked. The room. The room doesn't have a nose. It has a mood. The mood is flowers being held hostage. Claire changed their position once more. Nora trimmed the plugs flush and found a deeper problem. The door had sagged enough that its bottom edge dragged across the rug. Resetting the handle would not matter if every guest had to shoulder the door open. The top hinge is pulling out too, she said. Claire looked stricken. Can you fix it? Yes, but not in 10 minutes. How long? An hour. It took 3. The hinge screws had been replaced over the years with mismatched sizes. One too short, one stripped, and one driven at an angle, as if by a person interrupted during an argument. Nora removed the door, repaired the jamb, and planed the lower edge. Graham arrived while she was lying on the floor checking the clearance. Good, he said. You're helping. Nora slid out from beneath the door. This is help? I thought you had decided not to participate in the house. I decided not to live in it. There's a distinction? About 60 yards and a roof estimate. Claire entered with a tray of coffee. I asked her. Graham tested the handle before the glue had fully set. Don't, Nora said. He let go. How long will it hold? If nobody tests it every 30 seconds, longer. The photographer will need these open, then leave them open. He crouched to inspect the hinge. Dad repaired this 2 years ago. No, I did. Graham looked at her. Nora remembered the job. Thomas had sat in the armchair by the window, issuing instructions while she removed the door. Graham had visited that weekend. He had walked through the morning room, praised the way the doors moved, and told Thomas he was glad the stroke had not taken his touch. Thomas had said nothing. "You did this before?" Graham asked, during his first winter after the stroke. "Why is it failing? The wood around the old screw holes is 100 years old, and somebody used the handle as a towel rack." Claire looked away. "You hung towels on it?" Nora asked. "Only while cleaning." "How many?" It was a heavy week. Nora sat back on her heels. The repair lasted 2 years under active sabotage. Graham rubbed one finger over the smooth oak plug. "I thought Dad was still doing these things." "He was. With me." Another silence. Nora waited for him to say she should have told him. She was prepared to ask when he had ever shown interest. Instead, he said, "It looks good." The praise was small, almost reluctant. It reached her anyway. "Don't touch it until tonight," she said. At the gatehouse, May's storm door waited where she had left it. 3 hours of daylight were gone. Mateo had stacked flashing underlayment and salvaged slate beneath the western overhang. His mother's cedar chest sat closed on the sawhorses. "You got conscripted," he said. "I volunteered badly, same uniform." He handed her the receipt from Corbett's. Materials had cost $611.40. Nora took Ruth's check from her pocket, where she had been carrying it as if proximity could make it larger. "I'll pay you when it clears. Materials are covered." "How?" "I put them on my account." "I told you. You told me you couldn't pay labor. You have money for materials. Your bank doesn't know that yet. I don't want you financing my roof. I don't want rain in my mother's chest." The chest was nowhere near the leak. He knew she knew. Nora folded the receipt. 2 days. "Fine. And I'm paying every cent." "Yes, ma'am. Don't call me that." "Yes, Woodland eccentric." Before she could answer, Claire appeared again. This time she carried Nora's milk, eggs, cheese, and casserole in a cardboard produce box. Nora stared at it. "What happened to the bottom shelf?" "Lana is coming at 9 tomorrow with 2 prospective clients. They want to see how the kitchen functions during service." "So, my milk impairs function?" "Graham wants the refrigerator clear." "Of course he does." I put ice packs in the box. "The Gatehouse refrigerator doesn't work." "I know. I thought you could use Mateo's refrigerator in the grounds office." Mateo examined the flashing with sudden devotion. Nora took the box. 1 egg rolled loose and struck the side. "You said, tell you if I needed more space. I didn't know Graham had scheduled a tour, so tell him no." Claire's face tightened. "I have been telling him no since 6 this morning. No, we cannot promise overnight bookings by January. No, we cannot seat 36 in the library. No, we cannot call the pantry a butler's staging suite. That last one sounds painful. He has a spreadsheet. Then we're doomed." Claire did not smile. "I need tomorrow to go well. Why? Because I put money into this too." The admission hung between them. "How much?" Nora asked. "Enough." "Claire, I sold some investments. Before we divided the house, Graham said we had to move quickly if we wanted spring bookings." Nora looked toward Wrenwood. Through the trees, its pale walls caught the last clean light of afternoon, grand enough to make urgency look like vision. "You should have waited," she said. "I know that now." Claire's voice was quiet, stripped of its presentation. She set the box on the workbench. "I'm asking for one morning," she said. "Please don't use the kitchen while they're here." There were ways to hear it as a reasonable request. Nora tried each one. "All right," she said. Relief softened Claire's face. "Thank you." After she left, Nora opened the box. The cracked egg had leaked across the cheese, the casserole, and the ice packs. Mateo handed her a rag. "Don't," she said. "I didn't say anything. You're having an opinion very loudly." He wiped egg from the carton. "How much are you charging the mansion for 3 hours?" Nora looked back at the restored French door visible through the morning room window. "Nothing," she said. Mateo nodded toward May's storm door. "Then that's what your work is worth over there." Nora pressed the rag into the broken egg. "That is not what my work is worth." "I know." "Then don't say it like that." "How should I say it? You could say I helped my sister." "You helped your sister. The mansion got free carpentry. Those can both be true." Mateo considered that. "Yes." His agreement irritated her more than an argument would have. She carried the produce box to the grounds office, a narrow room attached to the machine shed. Mateo's refrigerator was half the size of Renwood's and contained mustard, tortillas, a lime that had surrendered to age, and 6 identical containers of stew. "You eat the same thing every day?" Nora asked. "It's different stew. They're all brown. Color isn't flavor." She fit her milk beside the containers and closed the door. "If my cheese starts tasting like cumin, I'm billing the mansion." "Good. Start somewhere." Back in the gatehouse, she worked on May's storm door until her hands steadied. The crack near the handle had opened because years of pulling against a misaligned latch had twisted the style. Simply closing it would hide the problem, not correct it. She cleaned the split, worked glue deep into it, and clamped the door square. Thomas had taught her that the visible break was rarely the first failure. She could hear him saying it without turning the sentence into anything larger. He had hated it when people made furniture philosophical. "It's a door," he once told a customer, who called a damaged cabinet a metaphor for her marriage. "You have enough trouble without giving the cabinet opinions." At dusk, Mateo brought a portable refrigerator from the machine shed. "It smells like fish," he warned. "Recently, depends how warm it gets." They plugged it into the gatehouse and cleaned it with vinegar. Nora transferred her food, throwing away the cracked egg and wiping yolk from the cheese wrapper. "Your father kept this full of varnish samples," Mateo said. "In a refrigerator?" He said heat ruined them. Was it plugged in? No. That also sounds like him. Mateo crouched to inspect the frayed cord on the hot plate. "Don't use this. Graham already issued that decree. For once, your brother is right. Please never say that in front of him. He'll have it engraved." Mateo cut away the damaged section and fitted a new plug from a box in the machine shed. When he finished, Nora made coffee on the hot plate. They drank it from paper cups beside Elena's cedar chest. "Why did your mother chase Dad with a broom?" Nora asked. Mateo looked at her over the rim. "Fence. I heard that part. Your father moved a boundary marker." "That sounds serious." "It was 6 inches." "That sounds like Dad." "My mother planted rosemary along the old line. He said it interfered with mowing. She said the mower should learn respect." "Who won?" "The rosemary." Nora smiled. "Did they speak after?" "Every Thursday for 9 years. He fixed things at her house. She fed him lunch and criticized his posture. And the broom? Stayed by the door in case negotiations failed. He rested one hand on the cedar lid, careful not to press near the split. After she died, your dad offered to fix this. Then he got sick." Nora traced the broken hinge mortise. "You never brought it to him?" "I kept thinking there would be a better week." There was no self-pity in the sentence. That made its regret cleaner. "I'll start after May's door," she said. "No rush. Never say that to someone with 3 unfinished jobs." The tour began the next morning with the sound of tires on gravel and Claire's voice carrying across the lawn. Nora had honored the kitchen ban. She was in the gatehouse sanding May's repaired lower rail, wearing Thomas's coat over her work clothes because the portable heater warmed only the part of the room directly in front of it. Through the open door, she saw Claire escort 3 women toward Renwood. Lana Pierce was tall, silver-haired, and dressed in black trousers with the posture of someone who had spent years balancing hot plates between crowded tables. The other 2 wore matching tan coats and carried folders. Graham followed, talking with both hands. "This side lawn can't accommodate a tented dining area," he said. Lana looked at the wet slope, in summer, with flooring nearly year-round. With enough flooring, you could dine on a pond. One of the women laughed. Graham did not. Claire noticed Nora watching and gave her a small wave. Nora raised 2 dusty fingers, then returned to the door. 20 minutes later, the group emerged from the mansion's side entrance. Graham led them toward the drive. "The full approach can be transformed for arrivals," he said. "Valet staging here, lighting in the oaks, floral installations along the wall." One woman pointed at the gatehouse. "What happens with that building?" Nora's sanding block stopped. Graham glanced toward her. "It's a former caretaker's cottage. We're still determining the best use." Claire opened her mouth. Nora stepped into the doorway. "Workshop and residence." The women looked at her. Graham's smile tightened. "My sister Nora. She's helping us with some restoration work while we settle the estate." Nora brushed sawdust from her sleeve. "I'm taking the gatehouse in the division." The silence was brief, but long enough. Claire moved first. Nora restores original windows, doors, and furniture. She repaired the French doors you saw in the morning room. Lana looked interested. You did those? Twice, apparently. The swing is good. Thank you. The woman with the folder glanced from Nora to Graham. So, the cottage isn't part of the venue? No, Nora said. Not at present, Graham said at the same time. Claire shut her eyes. Lana ignored both of them and came closer to May's door. Old pine, yes. You keeping the glass? If it survives me, good. She ran one finger just above the repaired rail without touching it, an inspection so disciplined Nora liked her immediately. Behind her, Graham said, We should look at the west terrace. Lana straightened. Your kitchen needs another hand sink, more cold storage, and ventilation that does not end in the upstairs linen closet. It ends in the linen closet? Claire asked. At the moment, your kitchen can support a private dinner for 12 if everyone likes soup. One of the prospective clients closed her folder. Graham's face stayed composed. Those are exactly the kinds of improvements we're planning. Plan costs first, Lana said, then promise dates. Nora lowered her eyes to hide the satisfaction. It was mean, and it tasted excellent. The group walked away. Claire lingered. Thank you for not saying anything about the pantry staging suite, she murmured. I showed restraint. You and Matteo should form a club. Graham told them the Gatehouse was undetermined. I heard. He knows exactly what we agreed. Claire looked toward her brother. Nothing is agreed until papers are signed. That sounds like him. It also happens to be true. So, what are you saying? I'm saying we need to finish the division before he builds a business plan that includes your roof. Nora glanced up. Matteo had already removed a section of slate near the chimney. Black underlayment showed beneath the tarp. My roof is busy. I'm serious. So am I. I'll call the estate attorney and ask for a draft based on what you proposed. The word attorney tightened something in Nora, though this was not a surprise and not a threat. An estate containing a mansion did not divide itself over coffee and stickers. I want independent numbers, she said. Not Graham's. Denise's independent. And the land division has to include the road strip, I know, and access to the utility lines until I install separate service. Claire blinked. You've thought about this. I chose a bad building. I didn't choose it blindly. Claire looked around the workshop. Why didn't Dad finish it? The question held no accusation, only confusion. He ran out of time. He had years before the stroke. He didn't know I'd come back. Claire's gaze settled on Thomas's coat. Did he ask you to? No? Did you want him to? Nora picked up the sanding block. The tour's leaving. Claire understood the dismissal. She accepted it, but not gracefully. I'll call this afternoon. By noon, Matteo had exposed the rotten decking around the chimney. The damage was smaller than the 3-truck company predicted and larger than Nora wanted. She climbed the ladder with a pry bar while Matteo worked from the roof. You stay on the ladder, he told her. I can get onto a roof. I know. You can also fall off one. So can you. I'm tied in. Nora looked at the safety line clipped to his harness. You brought one harness. I planned the job. You planned for me to watch. I planned for you to repair things on the ground where your customers left them. She passed him the pry bar. That sounds like an opinion. It's included in labor. They worked through the afternoon. Nora cut replacement decking below, carried slate, and held flashing while Matteo shaped it. Graham crossed the lawn twice, each time glancing toward them without stopping. Near 4, clouds gathered over the western trees. We need this closed before rain, Matteo said. It wasn't supposed to rain. The sky unsubscribed. They moved faster. Nora climbed higher to pass him the final sheet of underlayment, balancing with one foot near the top rung. A gust caught the loose material and snapped it against her face. Matteo grabbed the edge. Down. I'm fine. Down, Nora. I can hold it. And I can't work while wondering if you're about to become part of the landscaping. Something in his voice made her descend without arguing. From the ground, she watched him secure the flashing as the first drop struck the slate. He moved with irritating calm, testing every seam before covering it. The rain strengthened just as he fixed the final row. They dragged the ladder under the overhang and stood there breathing hard. Cake? Nora asked. Matteo looked up at the repaired chimney. No cake. Water ran from his hair down his face. Nora handed him Thomas's old shop towel. You could have let me help on the roof. You did help. From the ground. Ground is useful. That sounds like something you say to difficult women. Only the ones on my ladder. A laugh rose between them, too close to the place where anger had been. Nora became aware of the narrow overhang, his wet shirt, and the fact that neither of them had stepped away. Then Graham called from the drive. "Nora!" He stood beside May's storm door, holding a printed estimate. "The appraisals came in," he said. "We need to talk." Nora remained under the gatehouse roof long enough to hear the rain strike the new flashing and run cleanly away. Graham held the estimate above his head, as though the rain might alter the numbers. "You can bring that inside," Nora said. He looked at Matteo. "Matteo has seen a number before. This concerns the estate." Matteo picked up the ladder. "I'll put this away." "You don't have to leave," Nora said. "It's still company time," Graham said. Matteo's eyes rested on him for one beat. "Right." He carried the ladder toward the machine shed through the rain. Nora stepped under the gatehouse overhang and held the door open. "You could have waited 30 seconds. He's an employee. He's the reason my roof is closed. Your roof was repaired with materials purchased on his account while he was being paid to work here. We did it after his regular work. Mostly." Nora took the estimate from him. "What do the appraisals say? Claire's coming. Did you summon her too?" "She called the attorney this afternoon. There's a draft division being prepared, but Denise's numbers create complications." "Numbers don't create complications. People use them to." "Put that on a pillow." Claire arrived carrying a laptop beneath her raincoat and a bottle of wine by the neck. Her hair had frizzed around her face, and a brown streak marked one knee of her cream trousers. "What happened to you?" Nora asked. "Lana made me crawl under the commercial dishwasher." "You don't have a commercial dishwasher." "I know that more intimately now." She set the wine on the workbench. "Do we have glasses? We have paper cups." "Of course we do." Graham did not sit. He opened his copy of Denise's report and spread several pages beside May's storm door. Wrenwood, excluding a separable gatehouse parcel, is valued at $1.46 as it stands. The gatehouse with the road strip is $112,000. Claire stopped pouring. "That low?" "It has a boxed toilet and a roof repaired by barter." "The roof no longer leaks," Nora said. "The report predates today." "Then I've already improved my position," Graham continued. "House contents, excluding personal effects and donated medical equipment, $94,000. The workshop tools as a collection, $28,000. Nora had expected the number to hurt. It did, though not because the tools were worth more than she thought. They were worth exactly enough to become difficult. Claire pushed a paper cup toward her. Denise valued the gatehouse as a separate residence, subject to surveying and utility arrangements, Graham said, and the county confirming the road strip can be divided. "It can," Nora said. "The old survey shows it separately. That doesn't guarantee current approval." "No, it means we ask." Graham took a breath. "My point is, what Nora proposed is not a division. It's an allocation followed by a large buyout Claire and I would have to finance." "You were refinancing anyway," Nora said, "for improvements that generate revenue. You mean improvements to your asset, to the house, which would be your asset." Claire drank half her wine in one swallow. "We're 12 seconds in." Graham tapped a page. "I put together an alternative. Nora receives the gatehouse parcel, her documented tools, 15 tools of her choice from Dad's collection, and $60,000 in cash when the refinance closes. Claire and I assume all Wrenwood operating costs immediately." Nora looked at him. 60? That gives you liquidity to make the building habitable. It also gives you and Claire a mansion at a substantial discount. It gives us an expensive property requiring major investment. You walk away from the tax exposure, maintenance, and business risk. I also walk away from hundreds of thousands of dollars, not liquid dollars. They become liquid when you sell. We're not selling. That's your choice, not a discount code. Claire set down her cup. "She's right." Graham turned. "You haven't even reviewed the expense projections." "I've reviewed enough to know 112 plus 60 is not a third." "Then reduce the property value by legitimate repair costs and calculate from there," Claire said. "We don't just tell Nora she's lucky not to own gutters." Nora studied her sister. Claire noticed. "What? Nothing? Don't look impressed. It's upsetting." Graham paced once to the boarded window and back. "Where do you expect the money to come from?" "The refinance," Claire said. "A larger refinance means higher payments. You already think my projections are aggressive. They are aggressive. You invested based on them. I know. That doesn't mean Nora funds my bad decision." The brown mark on Claire's knee came from something greasy, not mud. She had been working in the kitchen all day while Graham calculated how other people should absorb risk. Nora felt a burst of loyalty so sudden it resembled anger. "I'm not asking for cash tomorrow," she said. "Get the repair estimates. Work out what you can finance. But don't call 60,000 fair because you said the word exposure." Graham looked from one sister to the other. "So, now you're aligned." "No," Claire said. "We're in the same room, and you're wrong. Don't make it historic." Rain ticked against the repaired flashing overhead. No water fell into the bucket. Graham gathered his papers into a stack, striking the bottom edge against the bench. "Fine. We get estimates. We establish the cost of creating the parcel. We divide the contents. Until then, all estate expenses remain shared." Nora went still. "What does that mean?" "It means you inherited a third of the expenses along with a third of the assets. Insurance, utilities, taxes, essential maintenance. I'm not using the house. You used the shower this morning. Should I expect an invoice?" "That isn't what I said. It's what you wanted me to hear. It's reality. I've been covering costs since before Dad died, and I've been covering care. With what money?" Claire slammed her paper cup onto the bench. Wine jumped over the rim. "Stop asking her that." Graham stared at the red splash spreading across Denise's report. Claire grabbed a rag. "She paid with 2 years of her life. You don't have to put it on a spreadsheet, but you will stop pretending it was free." Nora could not look at either of them. She picked up a clamp from beside May's door and moved it to the other side of the bench for no reason. Graham's voice was quieter when he spoke. "I know it wasn't free." "No," Claire said. "You know saying that is currently useful." She blotted the report. The wine turned the appraised value of Wrenwood pink. Graham gathered the wet pages and left without his cup. Claire exhaled. "I may have ruined the official numbers. They were copies, still satisfying." Nora leaned against the bench. "You didn't have to do that." "I did, actually. I've spent years translating Graham into a more pleasant dialect. It's made him think the original is acceptable. Why did you invest with him?" Claire took the wine bottle and filled her cup again. "Because I'm good at events. Because I spent 12 years making other people's houses look beautiful for one night, then packing everything into vans before sunrise. Because Dad died, and Graham said we could keep Wrenwood, and for about 48 hours, that sounded like the same thing as keeping us." The confession arrived without drama. Claire wiped the last of the wine from the papers and folded the stained rag. "I also thought you'd take the cash," she said. "So did Graham. So did you, until you didn't." Nora could not argue with that. Claire glanced at the dry ceiling. "The roof sounds different. It's not leaking. You fixed it. Matteo did most of the roof work. You helped. From the ground. Ground is useful." Nora narrowed her eyes. "You've been speaking to him. He told me where the shutoff valve was, while Lana was dismantling my self-respect." Claire picked up the bottle. "Come inside for dinner. I have a storm door to finish." "After?" The caterer ban lifted. The private dining experience has departed. Did the prospective clients book? Claire's expression gave the answer. "Not yet," she said. "They want a formal proposal and proof we can make the kitchen compliant by March. Can you?" "With money, yes. And without money. Soup for 12. After Claire left, Nora worked until the glue on May's door had cured enough to remove the clamps. Matteo returned near 7, carrying 2 covered bowls from his row of brown stews. "Dinner," he said. "Different colors." One was brown. The other was darker brown. They ate beside the heater while rain slid harmlessly down the new flashing. Nora told him the Gatehouse appraisal. He whistled at the tool value. "Your father would be offended," he said. "Why?" "He thought each plane was priceless. He also left 3 outside during a thunderstorm because a squirrel got into the truck. That was an emergency." "You were there?" "I was the one holding the laundry basket." Nora looked at him. "The raccoon story was a squirrel? First it was a squirrel. The raccoon came later. Your father believed in repeating mistakes with larger animals." When the bowls were empty, Matteo examined the storm door repair. 300, 200. "Did you enjoy working for the mansion more? That's cheap." "That wasn't my question." Nora ran a hand over the new pine patch. She had spent 3 unpaid hours inside Wrenwood, then another 4 catching up here. Her back hurt. The skin beside her thumbnail had split. May's deposit had already been mentally divided among paint, food, and the amount she owed Matteo. "No," she said, "then charge for the next job. Family is different. Different from what? Customers. Because family doesn't pay? Because you don't count every favor. Mateo stacked the empty bowls. Your brother counts them. I'm not Graham, I noticed. The words held more warmth than the room's small heater. On Friday, May collected the restored storm door. She examined the patch, the reset glass, and the even coat of white paint. Then she opened and closed it while it lay flat, which accomplished nothing but seemed to please her. This will outlive me, she said. That isn't the official warranty. May handed Nora $200. You already paid $100. I know. The total was $2. Ruth said $3. Ruth isn't here. May tucked the money beneath the receipt book. Then you'll have to chase my station wagon. She left before Nora could protest. That afternoon, 2 calls came. One from an innkeeper with 6 dining chairs that rocked in directions chairs should not. The other from a man who owned a brick house near the river and had 3 windows painted shut. Nora wrote both names in Thomas's receipt book. At 5, she carried Mateo's cedar chest into the center of the workshop and began removing the damaged hinge. She had just exposed the jagged loss beneath it when he appeared in the doorway without his wrenwood jacket. He held a cardboard box containing his thermos, work gloves, 2 framed photographs, and the rosemary plant from the grounds office windowsill. Nora looked at the box. What happened? Mateo set it on the floor carefully. Graham happened, he said. He says the estate can't afford me. Nora stared at the rosemary plant. A few grains of soil had spilled onto Mateo's gloves. When? 20 minutes ago? He waited until the end of the day? He believes in clean visual lines? Did Claire know? I didn't ask. Nora untied her apron. I'll ask. Mateo stepped in front of the doorway. Move. No. He fired you after you repaired my roof. I repaired your roof after hours. He spent the afternoon telling us the estate has to keep paying essential expenses. He decided, I'm not essential. You maintain 38 acres, 27. 11 are woods, and the woods mostly maintain themselves. Mateo. He held her gaze. His face was calm, but the knuckles around the cardboard box had gone pale. Don't turn me into a weapon in your fight with your brother, he said. This is part of my fight with my brother. It's my job. Exactly. My job, he repeated. I get to decide how I respond. Nora's hand stayed on the apron knot. And you've decided to carry a plant home? For tonight. That's not a response. It is the first part of one. She stepped back, not because she agreed, but because his pride was visible now, held carefully between them. What did he offer? She asked. 2 weeks' pay and occasional contract work when the grass grows again, in November. He also said I could keep using the machine shed for a month. How generous. You can live with the mower. I have an apartment. I know. And other clients. I know. You're doing the thing. What thing? Making me more helpless so you can be more angry. The sentence found its target. Nora folded her arms. I don't think you're helpless. Then let me handle it. She looked at the 2 framed photographs inside the box. One showed Mateo beside an older woman with thick black hair streaked silver. Elena Cruz stood in a garden, holding pruning shears, not smiling, one hand gripping Mateo's shoulder. Behind them, rosemary grew in a line along a low fence. Are you going to keep fixing the roof? Nora asked. Roof is fixed. The chest isn't. That's your job. And your labor was part of the trade. I'll finish what I promised. You don't owe Renwood anything. I promised you. Nora looked away first. Mateo moved his box beside the workbench. I need to return the utility cart before Graham starts counting tires. I'll help you carry things. You can carry the rosemary. She picked up the pot. Careful, he said. It won. They crossed the grounds office in 3 trips. Graham had already placed a folder on the desk labeled Grounds Vendor Options. Nora saw it while collecting Mateo's rain jacket from a hook. She opened the folder. The first estimate covered mowing, leaf removal, and seasonal trimming. It did not include the stone walls, drainage ditches, old trees, irrigation, storm cleanup, or any of the 1,000 daily observations Mateo performed before they became expensive. The monthly total was less than half his wages. He thinks this replaces you, she said. Mateo took the folder from her and set it down. It replaces grass cutting. Graham doesn't know the difference. He will. It was not vindictive. That made it sound more certain. Graham stood on the mansion steps when they emerged. Mateo, I need your keys. Mateo removed 3 from his ring and placed them in Graham's palm. "The brass one sticks in the machine shed," he said. "Lift the door before turning it. Fuel shut off on the mower leaks if you leave it open. Pump by the south field loses prime below freezing." "I'll make a note." "You should." Graham looked at Nora holding the rosemary. "I assume he told you?" "She can hear," Mateo said. "I was speaking to my sister. She can also speak." Nora almost told them both to stop talking about her abilities. Instead, she asked Graham, "How much did you save?" That's not an appropriate question to discuss in front of an employee. "Former employee," Mateo said. Graham's face tightened. "The estate cannot continue paying full-time wages for work a vendor can perform as needed." "Who checks the pump?" Nora asked. "We'll have a service schedule." "The gutters? Vendor? The west drainage ditch?" "I have the property file. Does the file know when the ground smells wrong before the septic line backs up?" Graham looked toward Mateo. Mateo picked up his box. "That one's free." He walked toward his truck without saying goodbye to Graham. Nora set the rosemary inside Mateo's passenger door. "Call me." "For what?" "Anything." "That is a dangerous offer from someone with $500 and a fish refrigerator. I paid Corbett's this morning." "Then you have less than 500. Call me anyway." His expression softened. "Finish the chest." He drove away, the rosemary plant buckled into the seat beside him, with its leaves trembling against the window. Nora turned back toward the house. Graham was still on the steps. "You wanted accurate estate expenses. You fired a man. Don't call it accuracy. I eliminated a position we can't sustain. You didn't even ask what he does. I reviewed payroll and vendor bids. You reviewed mowing. Nora, the mansion is not a charity, no. Charities usually understand labor." She expected him to shout. Instead, he looked tired. "Every month this property costs money we do not have," he said. "You want a fair buyout. Claire wants kitchen renovations. The roof needs work before spring. Something has to stop bleeding. So you chose the person. I chose the expense. That's how you make it sound clean." She left him there. May Collins' storm door brought 2 more referrals. The innkeeper's 6 chairs arrived the following Monday in a rented van, each tagged with a room number and a description of its particular failure. Nora lined them along the gatehouse wall. 2 rocked, 1 leaned. A 4th produced a faint creak whenever anyone stood near it, as though anticipating harm. The brick house windows came out on a bitter Wednesday morning. Nora worked with numb fingers while the owner, Leon Barber, apologized for the paint every time another sash refused to move. Thomas's receipt book began filling with names and deposits. So did Renwood's list. Claire needed the dining room pocket doors freed before a trial dinner. Graham wanted 3 damaged window stools repaired before a lender's inspection. A section of paneling in the library had pulled away from the wall. The front door swelled after rain and required a shoulder to close. Each request arrived as a small emergency. "I only need an hour," Claire would say. "This affects the refinance," Graham would say. Nora told herself the refinance affected her too. She carried tools up the drive, fixed what she could, and refused to count the hours because counting felt ungenerous. Mateo came in the evenings after meeting with potential landscaping clients. He repaired the gatehouse bathroom framing, while Nora rebuilt the torn corner of Elena's cedar chest. His hands were better with walls than fine wood, though he insisted the distinction was prejudice. "You don't have to do that," Nora told him, as he checked the bathroom studs for plumb. "Neither do you. I owe you roof labor. You owe me a chest. I'm working on it. So am I." He had picked up 2 weekly grounds jobs and a one-time cleanup at a vineyard. He spoke of them without celebration, as if employment were weather he had expected to change. One evening, Nora found an old photograph tucked behind Elena's gardening gloves. Mateo was standing beside a newly planted rosemary hedge with Thomas, both men soaked to the knees. Thomas held a shovel. Elena stood behind them with the broom. When Nora showed him, Mateo laughed until he had to sit down. "That was the peace agreement," he said. "Why are you wet?" "Your father opened the irrigation line while we were digging. By accident, we chose to call it that." Nora placed the photograph with the recipe cards. "She looks happy. She was furious. She can be both." Mateo's laughter faded. "Yes." For a moment, neither moved. The portable heater clicked off. Cold entered immediately around the plywood windows. Mateo looked at Nora's mouth, then at the cedar lid between them. The hinge patch is good, he said. Coward. His eyes returned to hers. A knock sounded at the door before either could decide what the word required. Claire stood outside in a wool coat, holding another brass handle. No, Nora said. I haven't asked yet. The answer has experience. Claire held up both hands. The trial dinner is tomorrow. 12 guests, soup included. The library door won't latch, and Graham invited a local magazine editor. That is not an emergency. He's also invited Denise, the appraiser. He wants her to see the improvements before the refinance valuation. Nora stared at her. The improvements. Claire's face changed. What? Nora asked. Nothing. Say it. Graham added a page to the proposal. Recent stewardship. There are photographs. Of what? The morning room doors, the window stools, the library paneling. Nora walked past her into the cold. Graham had laid copies of the new proposal across the dining table. On one page, beneath a photograph of the French doors, were the words, "Original craftsmanship, meticulously maintained by the Vale family." Nora read the sentence twice. Graham entered carrying his laptop. Claire said you were coming. Who maintained this? He glanced at the page. We did. We, the family. Which member of the family was on the floor resetting the hinge? This isn't a trade invoice, Nora. It's marketing language. It's a lie. It says the Vale family. Your last name is Vale. Then put my name on it. He closed the laptop. Do you want public credit or do you want to be paid? I haven't gotten either. You're benefiting from the refinance. Maybe. Eventually. If you produce an offer that isn't insulting. And until then, you expect me to itemize every hour each of us contributes. I expect you not to photograph my work and call it yours. Claire stood in the doorway, the broken handle still in her hand. Graham lowered his voice. I have spent hundreds of hours building a business plan. Claire has spent weeks preparing the house. Are we sending you invoices? You're building something you want, and you're repairing the family home. I'm delaying paying customers to repair the asset you intend to own. The truth of it settled over the polished table. Graham looked away. Then submit your hours. What? Submit a record of your hours and we'll account for them in the division. That isn't payment. It's what the estate can do right now. Nora thought of the 6 chairs waiting in the gatehouse. Leon's windows were due Friday. Elena's chest lay open because she kept leaving it for Renwood. No, she said. Graham's eyebrows lifted. No more accounting later. No more 10-minute favors. If the mansion needs my work, it gets a written price and a place on the schedule. Claire's hand closed around the broken handle. The dinner is tomorrow. I know. The door doesn't latch. I can look at it tonight. Graham opened his mouth. For a fee, Nora said, and after tonight, my working hours are mine. Claire looked hurt. Graham looked offended. Nora felt both injuries land and refused to pick them up. How much? Claire asked. Nora named a price. Graham laughed once. For a latch? For my evening. Claire took out her phone. Send me an invoice. The surprise must have shown on Nora's face. Claire shrugged. Different dialect. The repair took 40 minutes. Claire paid the invoice from her own account before Nora carried her tools back to the gatehouse. The trial dinner went well enough that Graham used the word triumph. Lana served soup, roast chicken, and pears poached in wine. The magazine editor admired the French doors. Claire told her Nora had repaired them. The next morning, Nora drove to the inn with the 6 dining chairs 2 days late. The innkeeper examined them, paid the balance, and removed 4 more chairs from the work order she had planned to give Nora. I found someone who could take them sooner, she said. Guests notice when chairs wobble. Nora stood beside her truck with the reduced check in her hand. On the drive back, she passed Renwood's entrance. A new sign had been placed at the curve beneath the oaks. Renwood House, it read. A place to return to yourself. Behind it, the south drainage ditch was already filling with dead leaves. Nora slowed but did not stop. The grounds vendor had blown the visible leaves from the drive and left them packed against the stone mouth of the ditch. Rain would carry them inward. The first hard freeze would turn the water behind them into a solid dam. She called Graham from the truck. What? He answered. Good morning to you too. I'm with the lender. The south ditch is blocked. A pause. Then call the grounds company. You hired them. And you have the number. It's on the service board in the pantry. I don't have a pantry, Nora. Tell them to clear it before the temperature drops. I'll handle it. The phrase had become Graham's preferred method of ending a conversation without changing his day. Nora drove on. At the gatehouse, the cedar chest waited with its repaired lid propped open. She had fitted new cedar into the torn hinge corner, shaping the patch to follow the grain, instead of disguising it beneath hardware. The repair would always be visible if Matteo knew where to look, but it no longer looked like damage. He arrived that afternoon carrying 2 finished bathroom shelves and a bag of hardware. "Close your eyes," Nora said. He stopped inside the doorway. "Why?" "Because I said so. That has never improved a situation." "Fine. Keep them open and experience less joy." She lowered the cedar lid. It closed without twisting, both hinges settling evenly. Then she opened it again. Matteo put down the shelves. He touched the repaired corner with one finger. His hand moved across the lid to the old split, now joined so tightly it survived more by touch than sight. "You saved the original hinge," he said. It was bent, not broken. It looked broken. Common mistake. He glanced at her, understanding the tease and whatever sat beneath it. "How much do I owe you?" A roof, bathroom framing, 2 shelves, and several expensive opinions. "I thought the opinions were included. They went over estimate." He laughed softly, but his attention returned to the chest. Nora placed Elena's green apron, recipe cards, photograph, and gardening gloves inside. Matteo picked up the photograph of Thomas holding the shovel. "He never apologized for the irrigation line," he said. "Did your mother?" "She was holding a broom." "Fair." Matteo set the photograph on top of the apron. When he closed the lid again, he left his palm resting there. "I kept this shut after she died," he said. "Couldn't open it without smelling her house. You brought it here. I got tired of being afraid of furniture. Dad would say it's just a chest." "Your dad had opinions about grief?" "Only other people's." Matteo turned. He stood close enough that Nora could smell cedar dust on his shirt. "You called me a coward," he said. "You discussed a hinge. It was a good hinge. It was avoidance. I've been unemployed. My timing was poor. You have 4 clients now. 5. So your timing has improved." He kissed her carefully, not like a man claiming a reward, but like someone testing whether a repaired thing would hold. Nora caught the front of his shirt. The kiss deepened, warm and startling in the cold workshop, until the portable refrigerator clicked on with a low mechanical groan. Matteo drew back. Fish refrigerator has concerns. It has always been judgmental. He rested his forehead against hers. "I have to leave in 10 minutes. I didn't ask you to move in. You have a camp mattress and no bathroom door. It's a temporary aesthetic. I'm hanging the door today." He did. It stuck at the bottom because the floor sloped, and Nora made him take it down and plane the edge. He accused her of becoming Thomas. She accused him of insulting a paying customer. No money changed hands. By the first week of December, the Gatehouse had a working toilet, a shower that produced hot water for almost 7 minutes, and glass in 2 of the window openings. Nora bought the glass with money from Leon Barber's windows and ate more eggs than she wanted because eggs remained cheap. Work filled the wall calendar. 2 tables, a set of shutters, the inn's remaining chairs after its faster repairman proved less successful, and a carved oak panel from a house near the river. Nora began giving prices without apology. When May sent a woman with a collapsed porch bench, Nora quoted the hours she expected, instead of the amount she feared the woman would tolerate. The woman said, "That seems fair." Nora almost reduced it out of shock. Renwood's requests now arrived by email. Claire described the problem, attached photographs, and asked for an estimate. She paid from the house operating account, after Graham complained that using her personal money distorted the business records. The first proper invoice Nora sent the mansion covered 3 windows along the West Service corridor. Their exterior storm panels had pulled loose, and cold air moved around the old sash even when the latches were closed. "Those need to be secured before the freeze," Nora told Graham when he questioned the price. "The weather report says 28. Overnight low is 19 on Thursday. It changed. That's a thing weather does. Can you patch them? That is the patch price. It's more than the library door. It's 3 exterior windows. We have a refinancing inspection next week. I need the guest rooms finished. The guest rooms have curtains. Pipes don't care about curtains." He approved 1 window. Nora repaired the worst of the 3 and sent a second warning with the invoice. She copied Claire. Claire called that evening. "How serious?" If the corridor gets below freezing, serious. The pipe runs inside the wall, not all of it. There's an exposed section by the service stair. I'll put a heater there. Make sure it's rated for unattended use, and don't use an extension cord. You sound like Dad. No, Dad would use 3 extension cords and blame electricity, Claire laughed. I'll talk to Graham. The south drainage ditch remained full of leaves. Rain fell the Wednesday afternoon, collecting behind the blockage and spreading across the lower drive. By evening, the temperature dropped. The water hardened in milky sheets under the oaks. Mateo salted the Gatehouse path before leaving for a vineyard job that began before sunrise. He checked the new flashing and wrapped the outside faucet with insulation. Wrenwood pump? Nora asked. Not my pump. That's petty. Yes. Did you tell Graham? I wrote it in the maintenance notes he didn't read. You could call him. So could you. Nora called Claire instead. No answer. The mansion glowed through the trees, every front window lit for photographs, scheduled the next morning. At 10, Graham texted, grounds vendor handled weather prep. Nora looked at the frozen ditch and wrote back, they miss things. He did not respond. The gatehouse held its heat through the night. Wind pushed at the new windows, but did not enter around them. Nora lay on the camp mattress, now placed on a simple platform Mateo had built, and listened to branches ticking against the slate. At 5:17 in the morning, her phone rang. Claire's name flashed across the screen. Nora answered. What happened? I don't know. Behind Claire's voice came a loud rushing sound. Where are you? West Hall. There's water coming through the library ceiling. Nora was already pulling on jeans. Shut off the main. Where? Basement wall behind the old coal room. Red handle. I can't get the basement door open. Where's Graham? Trying to find the grounds vendor. Of course he is. Nora shoved her feet into boots and ran outside. The cold struck hard enough to stop her breath. Wrenwood's side drive had become ice. She crossed the lawn instead, slipping once and catching herself against a boxwood. The side door was unlocked. Water ran down the west corridor wall in shining threads. Claire stood beneath it in slippers and a wool coat thrown over pajamas. Her hair was wet on one side. She held a stock pot under a stream coming through the ceiling, as if choosing the right cookware might restore order. Basement, Nora said. The key won't turn. Nora took it, lifted the sagging door by the handle, and turned. Mateo's voice in her memory. Lift the door before turning. The basement stairs were slick. They found the valve and fought it together, Claire bracing both hands over Nora's. The handle resisted, then moved with a metallic groan. The rushing inside the walls slowed. Upstairs, Graham stood in the corridor, speaking loudly into his phone. Water had soaked the carpet and entered the library below, staining the plaster ceiling in a spreading brown shape. One of the unrepaired windows rattled in its frame. The portable heater beside it was dark. The outlet tripped, Claire said. Graham ended the call. The emergency plumber is on his way. He can't get up the drive, Nora said. They have a 4-wheel drive truck. The lower curve is ice. Then we salt it. The salt spreader is in the machine shed. Mateo returned the key. Graham looked toward the key hook in the pantry, 2 floors away. Nora crouched beside the exposed pipe near the service stair. Copper had split along a 6-inch seam. Water still dripped from the opening. This has to be replaced, she said. The wall needs to be opened so everything can dry. Library ceiling too. How long? Claire asked. Depends how far the water traveled. Graham looked down the corridor. We have the Halpern gathering on Saturday. Cancel it, Nora said. No, it's Thursday. They paid a substantial deposit. Give it back. We used it for the kitchen deposit. Claire looked at him. You told me that money was untouched. I moved it temporarily. To what? The ventilation contractor. Without telling me? The work had to be scheduled. Water dripped into Claire's stock pot with a steady, hollow beat. Graham turned to Nora. You know the house. Start opening the damaged sections. I'll bring your tools. No. He stared at her. I have 2 tables due tomorrow and shutters due Monday, Nora said. Call the plumber. Call a water damage company. This is not a latch. You warned us about the windows. You know exactly what happened. Yes. So, help us fix it. For a contract, after my scheduled work. The gathering is in 2 days. That is not my emergency. Claire flinched. Graham's face hardened. Dad's house is flooding and you're worried about shutters? Dad's house stopped being Dad's house when you turned it into Wrenwood House. You accepted the Gatehouse. You keep saying that as though I accepted permanent unpaid service with it. I'm asking my sister for help. No. You're assigning me work because you think my customers matter less than yours. Claire set down the stock pot. Her wet hair had begun freezing at the ends. Graham, she said, go find the machine shed key. I'm not leaving go. Something in her voice moved him. He left. Claire leaned against the wall. Without Graham present, the confidence went out of her posture. I can't cancel Saturday, she said. You may have to. I put almost everything I could access into this. Not just the kitchen, linens, deposits, insurance, the first payroll. Graham said the refinance would close before any of it came due. Nora looked at her sister's slippers, soaked dark around the toes. I can't manage this house alone, Claire said, and he keeps making decisions like confidence is money. The corridor window rattled again. I'm not asking you to do it for free, Claire said. Write the contract. Charge us. Bring Mateo if he'll come. Bring anyone you trust. Just please don't leave me here with a stock pot and Graham's spreadsheet. Nora looked through the library door, at water dripping from the ornamental plaster. The damage was real. So were the shutters waiting in her workshop, the customers who had begun trusting her word, and the boundaries she had finally drawn. I won't cancel my jobs, she said. Claire nodded, eyes closing briefly. Okay, I'll call people. If they can come around my schedule, we stabilize the damage today and assess what can honestly be ready by Saturday. Okay. And Graham doesn't direct the work. A tired, almost feral smile crossed Claire's face. That, she said, may be worth the entire invoice. Nora called Mateo first. He answered on the second ring. You all right? I'm fine. Wrenwood has a split pipe, water in the west wall, and a gathering in 2 days that should be canceled. South ditch? Frozen solid. Pump? Not yet. Graham? Still Graham. Mateo was quiet for half a second. What do you need? Help opening the wet walls and getting air through. Paid work. Emergency rate. Whose idea was the emergency rate? Mine. I like growth. Can you come? I have a vineyard crew until noon. Come after. I'm calling Saul about the pipe and Denise Holloway about the plaster. Denise the appraiser? Different Denise. Better with ceilings. Is Graham directing? No. I'll be there at 12:30. Nora called Saul Bennett, a plumber Thomas had trusted, because Saul refused to pretend old plumbing was charming. He could arrive by 9 if someone salted the lower drive. Denise Holloway, who restored plaster in historic houses and swore at decorative moldings in a calm church voice, promised to come after lunch. Then Nora went back to the Gatehouse. Claire followed her across the lawn. Where are you going? To finish the tables. Now? I told you I wouldn't cancel my work. Water still dripped in the house behind them. The cold had turned the grass white. I thought you meant you'd work around it, Claire said. This is around it. Saul can't start until 9. Mateo can't come until 12:30. I can have the tables ready for pickup by 10. Claire looked toward Wrenwood, then at the Gatehouse. What can I do? Find fans. Not little bedroom fans, floor fans. Get plastic sheeting, contractor bags, masks, gloves. Don't let Graham hire anyone who promises to dry the walls without opening them. How do I know which walls? You don't. Wait for Saul. Claire nodded and took out her phone. And put on real shoes, Nora said. Claire looked down at her soaked slippers. These were $70. They're sponges now. Nora delivered the tables at 10:15. The customer ran her hand beneath both repaired edges, paid the balance, and asked whether Nora could look at a set of shutters in January. The ordinary exchange steadied her more than gratitude would have. When she returned, a path had been salted up the drive. Saul's truck stood outside Wrenwood with its rear doors open. Graham was carrying fans into the library. Claire wore rubber boots and one of Thomas's old flannel shirts over her clothes. Saul had opened the service wall plaster around the burst. The pipe split where Nora expected, beside the cold corridor window. A second joint farther down had begun to bulge, but had not failed. Caught that one in time, Saul said. Graham looked at Nora. Can both be repaired today? They can, Saul said. Whether this wall dries by Saturday is a question for God and the weather. The gathering uses the east rooms. The library is directly below us. We can close it. Saul glanced at Nora. Nora said, Water doesn't respect velvet rope. Graham's mouth tightened. I'm trying to save the booking, and we're trying to save the wall, Nora said. You agreed I direct the work. I agreed you would help. Claire came up the service stairs, carrying a box of contractor bags. No, you agreed, Nora directs. I was not present for that agreement. You were finding a key. Graham looked between them. This is my house, too. Then pick up the wet carpet, Nora said. For a moment, she thought he would leave. Instead, he stripped off his sweater, rolled up his sleeves, and knelt beside Claire. They worked until dark. Mateo arrived at 12:28 and charged the emergency rate Nora named without lowering it for history. Graham objected once. Mateo handed him a pry bar and asked whether he wanted the discounted instructional rate instead. Denise Holloway cut away the damaged library ceiling in sections, preserving the ornamental border while soaked plaster dropped heavily onto the plastic below. Nora and Claire carried debris outside. Saul replaced both weak pipe sections and insulated the exposed run. The gathering moved from Saturday to the following month, after Claire called the Halperns and told them the truth. They were reasonable, she said, surprised. Most people prefer water damage before dinner rather than during it, Nora said. We lost half the deposit. You kept the client. I also have to return the other half by Monday. Nora looked at Graham. He was across the library, dragging wet carpet toward the terrace doors. For the first time since Thomas died, he looked less like the owner of Wrenwood than someone employed by it. At midnight, only 2 rooms remained usable enough for sleep. Graham took a sofa in the drawing room. Claire and Nora sat on the service stairs, eating crackers and slices of cheese from the Gatehouse refrigerator. Claire's face was streaked with plaster dust. This is the worst private dining experience I've ever produced. Soup would have been easier, Lana warned me. She seems to enjoy that. She earned it. Below them, a fan roared through the open library door. Cold air came through the missing corridor plaster, carrying the wet mineral smell of the house. Claire wrapped the flannel shirt tighter. I thought I could do this. You are doing it. I thought I could make it beautiful, not just for pictures. I thought if people came here and loved it, it would mean Dad was right to spend his whole life keeping it. Dad spent his whole life complaining about keeping it. He complained about breathing. True. Claire turned a cracker between her fingers. I wanted the mansion because he respected things that lasted. Houses, businesses, Graham, people who didn't change direction every 6 months. Nora listened. I spent 12 years making parties, Claire continued. Dad called them your little events until I was 35. I thought if I made Wrenwood successful, he would finally be wrong about me in a way he couldn't ignore. He's dead. I'm aware. You're still trying to impress him. So are you. The answer stung because Claire said it without cruelty. Nora looked toward the dark window at the end of the corridor. He gave me the Gatehouse key after Graham called me a live-in failure. Claire was still. He heard that? Yes. He didn't say anything. Not in front of Graham. Of course he didn't. He apologized later. In the workshop. Claire's mouth twisted. Private apologies were his specialty. He told me he'd help me make one place nobody could reduce me inside. Outside, the fans changed pitch as plastic shifted over an opening. Is that why you chose it? Claire asked. Yes. Did he mean he was giving it to you? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe he meant the work. He wasn't good at separating property from feelings. None of us are. Nora thought of the Gatehouse key in her pocket, Thomas's crooked chalk lines upstairs, and the repaired walnut table in Ruth's front room. He left before it was finished, she said. Claire leaned her shoulder against Nora's. You didn't. It was not forgiveness. It was better. Company. By morning, Graham's lender had postponed the refinancing review until the damage was repaired and the new costs documented. Graham read the email standing in the library beneath a rectangle of missing ceiling. We can still close in January, he said. Claire did not answer. The repairs lasted 9 days. Nora worked at Wrenwood from noon until evening and kept mornings for her customers. Every hour went on an invoice. Claire approved them. Graham stopped objecting after Nora threatened to leave him alone with Denise Holloway, who had begun addressing him as spreadsheet. The work prevented mold, saved most of the library border, and restored the pipe. It did not make Wrenwood profitable. Estimates arrived for the main roof, kitchen ventilation, electrical upgrades, drainage, and the exterior windows. Graham moved numbers between columns until even he stopped calling them projections and began calling them problems. Claire listed what she had invested. The total was larger than Nora expected and smaller than what the house still needed. "I'm done putting money in," she told Graham at the dining table. "If we stop now, we lose momentum. We have no momentum. We have fans, we have bookings, we have inquiries, and one rescheduled gathering. The refinance fixes the cash issue. It creates a payment issue." Graham looked at Nora. "You're benefiting from the refinance too." "No," Nora said. "You still haven't made a fair offer." He had made 3. Each was better than the last, and still depended on Nora absorbing more risk than either of them admitted. Claire closed the laptop. "We finished the parcel division fairly. Then we decide whether Wrenwood gets refinanced or sold." "Sold?" Graham repeated. The words seemed to alter the room. Claire looked frightened after saying it, but she did not withdraw it. The final division took another month of estimates, arguments, and long emails. Nora received the Gatehouse parcel with its road access, the workshop bench, Thomas's full working collection, and a balancing share payable when Wrenwood was refinanced or sold. Claire insisted on the tools after learning an antique dealer planned to break up the collection. Graham signed last. Winter settled around the 2 houses. Wrenwood's repaired rooms reopened, but bookings came slowly. Nora's calendar did not. The Gatehouse filled with chair legs, window sash, cabinet doors, and people who had learned to knock hard because the new weather stripping muffled polite visitors. Mateo's landscaping work grew enough that he hired help by the day. He kept Elena's chest in the Gatehouse until the bathroom tile was finished, claiming it supervised him. In February, Claire came down the drive carrying a folder without stickers. "We have an offer," she said. Nora set aside the cabinet hinge she was cleaning. "For Wrenwood? Full price. Quick closing. They want to turn it into a destination property." "That's what you wanted." "I wanted something smaller than what they want." Claire placed the folder on the bench. The proposed site plan showed expanded parking, a circular arrival court, and a widened entrance road. The Gatehouse was represented by a dotted rectangle. Nora tapped it. "What does that mean?" "They want your parcel too." "It isn't for sale." "They're offering above appraisal." "It isn't for sale." Claire's fingers tightened around the folder. "I know. What aren't you saying?" "They won't make the main offer without control of the entrance." Graham told them he could persuade you. Nora looked at the site plan again. A printed note sat beside the dotted rectangle. "Remove existing cottage to improve arrival sightline." From the mansion, Graham's footsteps sounded on the frozen drive. Graham entered without knocking. He carried another copy of the offer, pages marked with yellow tabs. His coat was open despite the cold, and his breathing showed he had walked down quickly. "You've seen it," he said. "I've seen the part where they erase my house. The drawing is conceptual. The words 'remove existing cottage' seem developed. They're willing to pay $210,000 for your parcel." "No. Nora, listen to the full proposal." "No, you haven't heard the terms." "I heard bulldozer." Claire stood beside the workbench, arms folded. Graham looked at her. "You were supposed to explain the value. I explained that they want to demolish the Gatehouse. That isn't all they want. It's enough." He set his folder over the site plan. "The combined offer lets us pay every outstanding expense, return Claire's investment, satisfy Nora's balancing share, and walk away without debt. In addition, Nora receives almost twice the appraised value of this building." "This building isn't for sale," Nora said. "Everything is for sale at the right price." "Did Dad teach you that? Or did you learn it in a seminar?" His face hardened. "Dad left us a property none of us can carry alone. So sell your property. This is part of the property." "No." That was the point of spending a month dividing it. "The buyer wants a unified entrance. The buyer wants my road. It is the natural approach to the mansion. It's the approach past my home." Graham looked around the Gatehouse as if seeing evidence for his argument. The workshop was warmer than it had been in November, though the portable heater still clicked near the bench. 2 restored sash windows had replaced the plywood. The bathroom door closed properly. Tools filled the wall above Thomas's bench. A cabinet waiting for repair occupied half the center floor. "It's a Gatehouse," he said. "Yes. You could buy another house." "I don't want another house." "You could build a better workshop anywhere." "I don't want anywhere." His voice rose. "You are turning down $210,000 so you can sleep above a toilet we installed ourselves." Mateo installed it. I carried the box for 30 feet. It was heavy. Claire made an exasperated sound. "This is not helping." Graham ignored her. The sale solves everything. For you, for all of us. It destroys the one thing I chose. You chose it because you were angry. I chose it because Dad and I worked here. Dad worked everywhere. He spent 40 years repairing the mansion. And you spent 4 months turning it into a spreadsheet. His hand came down on the folder. At least I tried to keep it. You tried to make it prove you were right. About what? That you were the one who could handle the biggest thing. The words hit. Graham's mouth opened, then closed. Nora continued before caution returned. You never wanted the work. You wanted Dad's house because it looked like Dad trusted you with it. Claire wanted it because she thought making it beautiful would force him to respect what she does. I wanted the Gatehouse because it was the only place he admitted he'd hurt me. None of us chose a building. Graham looked at Claire. You told her that? I told her about me. So you've been discussing my motives without me. You were busy discussing her property without her, Claire said. He turned away. Through the new window, Wrenwood stood between bare trees, its columns bright in the winter sun. The mansion was supposed to stay in the family, he said. According to whom? Nora asked. Dad. When did he say it? He didn't have to. There it was. The family inheritance deeper than property. The belief that silence meant agreement if you resembled Thomas closely enough. Graham faced her again. You're sacrificing the family legacy for a shed. Nora felt the key in her pocket. She had tied Thomas's cotton loop to a newer ring, but the iron still pressed the same shape into her palm. The legacy isn't the mansion, she said. It's the work it takes to keep a place from becoming hollow. You wanted the appearance without counting the work, and then you counted everybody's work except your own mistakes. That's unfair. Yes, some of it is. The admission interrupted his defense. Nora lifted the folder and handed it to him. I'm not selling the Gatehouse. If you refuse, they may withdraw the entire offer. Then they withdraw. Graham looked at Claire. She has the right to say no, Claire said. This offer returns your money, I know. You said you needed out. I need out of the mansion. I don't need Nora erased from the drive. He gathered the site plans with stiff, precise movements. At the door, he stopped. When this falls apart, he said, don't pretend it didn't cost us. Nora looked at the cabinet waiting in the center of the room. I won't. The buyer withdrew 2 days later. They did not attempt compromise. Without the Gatehouse parcel, their consultants considered the approach too narrow for the scale of operation they planned. Graham forwarded the email to both sisters with no message attached. For 3 weeks, he did not visit the Gatehouse. The Halpern gathering took place in February. Claire reduced the guest count, hired Lana, and closed the library rather than pretending the faint ceiling discoloration was decorative. It made money, but not enough to prove Graham's plan. More offers came for the mansion. Some were too low. One buyer wanted to remove original walls before seeing what held them up. Another described the library as underutilized volume, causing Claire to end the tour early. The offer they accepted came from 3 partners who operated 2 small historic inns. They wanted Wrenwood without the Gatehouse, planned to restore only one section at a time, and understood Lana's explanation that a kitchen could not be improved through adjectives. Their price was lower than the destination property offer. It still covered the remaining obligations, Claire's documented investment, and Nora's balancing payment. Graham resisted until the main roof developed another leak above the east attic. He signed the acceptance at the dining table beneath the landscape painting, with his red sticker still hidden behind the frame. Claire signed next. Nora signed only the papers releasing her interest in Wrenwood. Her Gatehouse key lay beside her hand. Afterward, no one opened wine. Claire made coffee. Graham drank his standing by the window. The clock is yours, Nora told him. He looked toward the hall. I don't have room. You put a sticker on it. That was before I measured my apartment. Claire stared at him. You made me listen to a speech about continuity because I wanted the desk, and you didn't measure. The clock is 9 feet tall. It was 9 feet tall when you selected it. In the hall, it looks proportionate. Take the clock, Graham. He looked at Nora for help. She picked up her key. It's a significant asset and a significant responsibility. Claire laughed so hard she had to set down her cup. Even Graham smiled, though he tried to hide it by drinking coffee. The sale closed in early April. Wrenwood's new owners kept Matteo on contract because Claire gave them his number before Graham could recommend the vendor. They also hired Nora to restore 6 windows in the east wing at her full rate. She read the agreement twice before signing, waiting for the familiar phrase about family consideration to appear. It did not. Claire moved into a rented townhouse 20 minutes away and began planning events for other historic properties again. She took their mother's desk, the lemon oil sideboard, and the lamp she still hated. Graham took the clock, Thomas's reading chair, and 3 boxes of business records nobody else wanted. On his last afternoon at Wrenwood, he came down to the Gatehouse carrying Thomas's canvas coat. "You left this in the hall," he said. "I didn't move it. I found it with the things from Dad's room." He placed it on the workbench. One sleeve was still partly inside out. Graham stood without removing his hands from the canvas. "The new owners asked me where the water shutoff was," he said. "Did you show them?" "I took them to the wrong wall. There are several." Matteo knew. "Yes." He released the coat. "You knew, because Dad showed me." "He showed you everything?" "No. He showed me the things he needed me to do." Graham walked to the tool wall. His eyes moved over the planes Claire had insisted remain together. "I thought he stopped working after the stroke," he said. "I thought you were keeping him company out here. We worked, I know that now." The words were the same ones he had used before, but there was no argument following them. Graham touched the handle of a smoothing plane and withdrew his hand. "When he had the first stroke, he called me from the hospital. He said, 'You'll handle things.' That was all. That sounds like Dad. I thought he meant the estate, the house, Claire, you. He probably meant to call the insurance company." Graham laughed once without humor. "Probably." Nora waited. "I liked thinking he chose me to hold it together," he said. "Then every time something went wrong, I needed it to be because someone else hadn't done their part. You did work, I know." He looked at her, and she almost smiled at the reflexive answer. His face softened. "You did more," he said, "with him." I knew that, but saying it felt like admitting I hadn't. It wasn't a competition. It was to me. There was no apology yet. Graham had always approached difficult words by building a road around them. He picked up Thomas's coat and held it out to her. "I'm sorry I treated your work like it belonged to the house," he said, "and that I treated you like you did." The sentence was awkward. It was also complete. Nora took the coat. "Thank you. I still think you should have considered 210. Don't ruin it. I'm trying to remain recognizable." She hung the coat on its old peg. Graham examined the bathroom door, the glass windows, and the cedar trim now installed around them. "It looks good. Thank you." "Small?" "Goodbye, Graham." He paused at the threshold. "Do you need help moving the clock?" She threw a shop towel at him. He left laughing. The balancing payment did not make Nora rich. After taxes, the remaining bathroom work, separate utility service, and the debts accumulated during Thomas's illness, it became something quieter. Enough savings to survive a slow month without bargaining against herself. She completed the preservation certification she had abandoned, studying at Thomas's bench after work. Matteo corrected her practice quizzes with unreasonable confidence for a man who had never taken the course. When she passed, Claire brought a cake iced with the words, "Finally finished." Graham complained that the word finally was hostile, then ate 2 slices. Nora and Matteo did not hurry into promises. He kept his apartment. She kept the camp mattress folded in the loft long after she bought a real bed, partly from thrift and partly because throwing it away felt disrespectful to a worthy opponent. The original Gatehouse door took longer than anything else. It had been stored behind the machine shed, warped, split near the lower hinge, and painted so many times its edges no longer met the frame. Thomas had planned to restore it after finishing the roof. Nora worked on it between customers, refusing to strip away every scar. On the anniversary of his death, Matteo helped her carry it across the yard. Claire arrived with coffee and no camera. Graham came late because the clock delivery had blocked his car in his apartment lot. Together they held the door while Nora set the hinges. "Lift," she said. "I am lifting," Graham said. "You're narrating. Family tradition." When the final pin dropped into place, Nora asked them all to step back. Near the inside edge, beneath the latch, a shallow crescent remained visible, her first careless chisel mark. Thomas had stood beside her when she made it, and said nothing until she recognized the error herself. Nora turned the iron key. The lock resisted once, then moved. The door closed with a low, solid sound, clean against the frame. Claire touched Nora's shoulder. Graham looked away toward the mansion, where unfamiliar cars now stood beneath the oaks. Mateo remained beside the workbench, close enough to reach without crowding her. Nora rested her palm against the old wood. Thomas had not finished the gatehouse for her. He had done something harder and less visible. He had spent what strength remained teaching her to stay through the failed cuts, the gaps, and the starting over until she could finish it herself. Inside, the workshop smelled of cedar, coffee, and the walnut table waiting for Monday. Outside, Wrenwood no longer belonged to the Vales. Nora turned the key once more, opened her own door, and let her family in.